Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I am your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today. Whoa, wait a minute, where's my volume? There we go. Hello, and thank you for joining us. This is No Soundbites Allowed, and I'm your host, Michael Voss, Dragon of the Southern Tier. I'm happy to be here with you today. It is June 12th of 2022. Sorry, we started about a minute late here. But we were just looking over some of the breaking news that's going on in our nation, and we wanted to be able to talk to you about that. Because every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we do a live stream talking to you, finding out what you think about the issues that are affecting us all across the world. And this is a global conversation. I know in many countries you don't have the First Amendment. At least your government says you don't. We disagree. We believe you have the right to speak always. And we look forward to hearing what you have to say. Our first comment comes today from User's Been Banned. Afternoon. Tunnel Reflect is cool. Oh, well, that's good. And just wanted you to know that I know we started a minute late here, but again, we were checking out some of the latest news. Matter of fact, I want to go right to that before we start, because we're going to be talking about a lot of the issues that are going to matter to everyone. And one of the things we wanted to go to is, this came out about 2 hours ago. You may have heard this. This is from Meet the Press. And I think it's very important to hear what's being said here.
Welcome back. We only have a few minutes, but we have some breaking news. It appears that Chris Murphy and John Cornyn have come to an agreement on a deal to do something when it comes to reforming our access to guns. Leanne.
Okay, did you hear that? That we are going to do something. Again, we are hearing one of the most dangerous things we have ever heard from anyone in politics. Do something. We have told you over and over again on this program the true threat. Whenever you hear politicians and politicos, the news media say, do something, because it doesn't mean do the right thing. It doesn't mean do the effective thing. It doesn't even mean do something that's efficient. No, it just means do something. Put something in front of us, some 30-second slogan, a soundbite. Just come up with anything so that people can point to it and say, I did something, even if it doesn't work, that they did something. And this allows the powers that be, the status quo, to continue to move forward without actually helping anyone. It is a dangerous thing, because we have seen this over and over again when we have heard about various individuals in politics say, I'm going to do something. I'll give you a great example of that. Remember when Biden said that he is going to do something? This comes from the Washington Examiner, March 31st, 2022. We've talked about this on this program for a long time. Joe Biden tells reporters in Brussels that food shortages are going to be real, that there is going to be a real impact on the public. Let me ask you. He said, we need to do something. What has the Biden-Harris administration done? What has your local leader done? What governor in the United States, what city has done something about the food shortage we know is going to happen? We have been told, it has been forecasted, promised. The major news media has reported on this. Do something. Okay, what did they do? Nothing. And that's a problem. That's a massive problem. By the way, I want to thank User Has Been Banned for being with us, and Hot Chicks, and everyone who's going to be commenting. And I'm glad to see you guys all with us. But am I wrong here? Can anyone name what Joe Biden, the Biden-Harris administration, the leadership in the House or the Senate, can you name anyone in Congress that has said anything about what they are going to do about the food shortage that will be affecting you this fall? Because I can tell you, I haven't heard anything. There has not been a single statement. And if you think I am wrong, you think, Mike, you're just overlooking this, let me check this out. This is from Google. I'm doing a Google search on U.S. food shortages. Matter of fact, I'm going to update this for you live. And what do we see coming from Google? Chicken popularity and shortages of lettuce and sriracha. Their food shortages have continued into 2022. So we know that there are problems with food in the United States. It's not just baby food. And we know that that's going to get worse. Joe Biden has said so. But that's from Bloomberg. Okay, but CNBC says it's unlikely to happen. Joe Biden already said it will happen. It's not a question of is it going to happen. This is April 20th. You can see it on the screen right here. CNBC is saying, no, it's not going to happen. It is happening. It's happening in Sri Lanka. It's happening in Africa. Joe Biden has said it's going to happen in the United States and around the world. But yet we don't have a plan for this. Let's see. 9 items you might not find in your grocery store and why. That's June 1st. That's a food shortage. Food prices are climbing. UN warns of crippling losses of food. Okay. Risk of potential food shortages, May 17th. Okay. Looming food shortages, PolitiFact, probably not in the United States. But Joe Biden already said it is going to happen in the United States. We already know this is going to affect the world. Now, am I saying that the United States is going to be having the same kind of loss of food as Sri Lanka or much of Africa or much of the world? No, of course not. We're not going to see that kind of loss of food, but we already know that 15% of the food and items in our stores are empty shelves. We already know that's happening right now. And it's been happening since before January. This has been an ongoing thing. And we know this. And we know it's going to get worse. But because Joe Biden said he's going to do something, the news media let it go. They're not asking a single question. How is your life better? I'm not saying that Joe Biden has to have the best plan. I'm not even saying that he has to have a great plan. I'm not even going to say that he has a bad plan. He has no plan, and that is the difference. He said he would do something. People felt good, and they went to sleep. The news media backing him up said, don't worry, it probably, most likely, kind of sort of won't happen to you, even though we know it is happening to you right now. And that should scare you. Let me get to some of the comments here. I know Jan. Hello, Jan. Good to see you with us. Jan says from Facebook, how many food plants have gone up in smoke this year? How many chickens and turkeys have been killed? Well, I can answer that there have been 29 food plants that have burned down or stopped working this year. And there have been over 30 million chickens and turkeys that have been killed due to the avian flu that we have been covering since January on this program, letting you know about it. It is in 30 states of the United States at this time, and it continues to affect poultry and poultry prices. So there's that. Hot Chick says, Hot Chicks is having some fun with some comments. Let's see. User has been banned says, if I question if Biden makes any plans besides which poor souls' hair he will sniff. Not just food. Amy Schumer apparently started eating all the, okay, I don't want to talk about that. Yes, we are seeing smaller portions of food. We are seeing less availability of food, as we have reported continuously on this channel since the beginning of this year, if not earlier. We have been telling you that there is less food and more items not on shelves. You can blame it for all kinds of things, and they have. But my question isn't, why is it happening? At the moment, I'm asking, what can we do about it? What is the government doing to prepare American people? We've been on this channel telling you to get ready. We've been telling you how to prepare. And we've been doing that for a long time. And we're going to get into that for you in just a few moments. But I just wanted to highlight that because that's what you're hearing from the major news media, CNBC, NBC. This is what they're telling you. Oh, we have breaking news. They're going to do something. And they think that's supposed to make you feel good. I'm sorry. No, that shouldn't make you feel good. If anything, that should make you feel terrified. That should make you upset. that they're going to do something. But let me get into something else. Before I go too much further into the program, I want you to remember that they did something a year ago. In August of 2021, the Biden-Harris administration made plans to abandon Americans in Afghanistan, which they did. And on September 1st, when Joe Biden ran away, told the American forces to run away from Afghanistan, creating the first terrorist country of the world, a country that was created for terrorists, put in place a terrorist government, and provided them with the weapons and the funds for an army, the first armed terrorist country in the world, the Taliban. What did he do? He also left Americans behind. Now, at the time, on September 1st, he told us it's only 100 Americans, and we would get them out. And that number, within 5 days, turned to 85 Americans, and we're going to get them out. And then it became 429, and then it became 6, and then it became 100, and then it became 279. The numbers have changed month by month until the government stopped speaking about it, because they did something. They got us out of Afghanistan. They also endangered the lives of American citizens. Lots of them. I'm going to get to the comments in 1 second, but I want you to see this. What's the current status? When you look at Google, and again, I will update this live with you right now. Americans in Afghanistan, if you search for that, we know that in February of this year, February 2022, we know that there was a report from the United States Senate stating that the Biden-Harris administration knew 9,000 Americans were left in Afghanistan, just abandoned. And when we look through this, you can see, as I can prove this to you, January 11th, 2022, 80 Americans still want to leave Afghanistan. We were told they were gone. Okay, going through, we can see 7,800 Afghan Catholics, 900 American citizens as of December, 900 in December of 2021. Americans still stuck in Afghanistan from the Wall Street Journal. Thousands of U.S. residents still trapped in thousands. This is from foreignpolicy.com. These are all credible sources. Thousands of U.S. residents still stuck in Afghanistan. Over 289 being admitted by the American government. 85 in 2022. The numbers change. You have been lied to repeatedly. And on this program, we have asked over and over again for every member. We've asked Representative Antonio Delgado, before he ran away from the New York 19th to become Lieutenant Governor of New York, that how many Americans are left in Afghanistan? What are you doing to get them out? We have asked members of the federal government, the local, state, and we've asked everyone. They won't even talk about it. We've asked the State Department. They've never responded. This is the problem when you say they're doing something. They said they're going to do something to get the 85 Americans out of Afghanistan in September. There are thousands in Afghanistan right this second, and they won't even mention them. They won't say their names. They won't give you a number. They won't talk about it. And it's because if you found out that they were ineffective, that doing something was worse than what they had not done, then you might vote for a Republican or a Libertarian or a conservative. Hell, you might vote for the Green Party. And Democrats are terrified of that. And the news media, which is mostly liberal leaning, said, oh, well, we have to protect our Democrats, so we won't talk about this, even though it is the purpose of the government. Maybe you think I'm wrong. Let me get to some of the comments, because maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misunderstanding this. So, John Rains says, food costs are going up and packaging is smaller. And it has been doing that for years, but even more so now. You're correct. So we're going to talk a little bit about the economy and food, and how that's going to affect us in just a moment. User has been banned mentions in all seriousness, though. Well, no, I don't want to. That's a different thing. John Raines mentions prepping has never been more important than this past decade, which I agree. And we have to do this. People used to laugh at people for prepping for bad times in America, something that right after the Great Depression, people did on a regular basis right up to the 1960s. And now suddenly we stopped doing it and laughed at people for being able to prepare, preserve foods, have long-term food. Well, it seems that they were right. John mentions everything is turning us, the United States, into a socialist country. Well, it's getting worse. I will definitely say that. We aren't there yet, but we are in a dangerous spot. And this is like, and Hutchix mentions this is like Afghanistan and Vietnam. And user has been banned mentions Afghanistan is worse at this point. John mentions the administration refuses to take responsibility for anything, yet everything is Trump or Putin's fault. Well, we're going to get into that because even today, we just heard that Joe Biden's talking about, well, this is Putin's fault. The inflation, it's a Putin's fault. It has nothing to do with him or his policies because he has done something. That's right. He's taken actions to protect you. He's been doing stuff. Sadly, what he has done is ineffective and inefficient, and it doesn't work. And it's actually worse for you than what if he had done nothing. Now, you may disagree, and that's perfectly fine. I'm happy to hear any argument that says, no, Mike, this is how this has helped America. And I will be happy to hear that. Don't think our passion stops us from being able to hear your point of view. I want to hear your point of view. You can even call in to 607-242-1582 to let us know what you think from anywhere in the world. But what I can tell you from what I can see and the evidence I'm going to show you today, that's just not a reality. This isn't helping us. If they won't take Americans from Afghanistan, and by the way, this is something we know has been happening because when they do mention Afghanistan, like the last time CNN Politics mentioned it on February 13th of 2022, that 6 British citizens and at least 1 American was held by the Taliban. Now, this was short term, but in this entire article from CNN, they never once mentioned that there are Americans who have been abandoned by the Biden-Harris administration that are struggling in the same way that these news reporters were. But because it was news reporters, members of the same news media as CNN, they focused on them, forgot about the Americans, didn't care about the fact that just 1 month prior, we had gotten our last numbers of over 100 Americans being abandoned in Afghanistan by the Biden-Harris administration. And as soon as we said that these individuals were brought back out, as reported by The Guardian, well, then they stopped talking about Afghanistan. It's no longer a conversation because they did something. You know, and here it is. Besides this channel, there's the American Thinker. It is no one in the mainstream media, not even in the secondary, the alternative media, no one is talking about these Americans. The American Thinker on April 21st said, and I think this is important, there are other important questions being asked about inflation, and occasionally someone brings up the border, but no one seems to care about the Americans left behind. Not even Trump, as far as he knows, has brought up anything about it, about Americans being abandoned. He should be screaming from the rooftops along with every other Republican, but he seems just as silent as the rest. These are not Americans who chose to remain in Afghanistan. They have been abandoned and left in the hands of various bad actors who have hated Americans for generations. And I say to American Thinker, he got one thing wrong in that. It's not just in Republicans that should be screaming at the top of their lungs. It's every American citizen. Every American citizen. And also the British and the Australians and the Canadians, all of the nations that left people behind because America ran so fast they didn't have an opportunity to get their people out. This is important, folks, because this is what happens when you just get something. Now, my phone number, Hot Chicks, is 607-242-1582. For anyone who wants to call in, you can see it scrolling across the screen right now. It's 607-242-1582. The phone line is on. Anyone can call in, and we just ask you to be respectful, but tell us what you think. So, Hot Chicks, if you want to call in, please do. As a matter of fact, I'll type it into the comments right now. And that is open to anyone in the world. I'm happy to hear your voices. So if you want to call in, please do. So I wanted to make that point for you, and I think I've made it very well. This is something that's affecting everyone. Because if the Taliban can take American citizens hostage, if they can if they're abandoned in any given country, well, why would any country around the world have the belief that the United States will help them? Why would Taiwan, the Ukraine, Russia, Germany, the United Kingdom, why would any of our allies or enemies think that, well, the United States is going to stand up, that they're going to do something? Why would they think that? Because we haven't. We have been, yes, we're fighting a proxy war, an economic war against Russia right now because of its actions with the Ukraine, but we're not actually helping the Ukraine. We're doing the absolute bare minimum, just enough to say that we have done something. But we know, and Joe Biden has already said, Russia's going to win. He, in December of 2021, told Ukraine, give up. Just give the land over to Russia. Get over it. So when he starts with, and that was his initial position in December of 2021, he told the Ukraine to give up, to just give the land to Russia. If he's starting with that mindset, do we truly believe that he's willing to help them in a significant manner? Do we have a trust and faith that he's going to go to bat to the wall for the Ukrainian people when he won't even do that for the American people? People that he is sworn by oath and by position to actually protect? No, he's using them to be able to do something that he couldn't do otherwise, to wage an economic war with Russia. And this isn't World War III. It's not World War III. It's 3 regional world wars that we're getting into. That is a big difference. We've said that on this program before. And I want you to understand, these are regional conflicts that are happening simultaneously, and the Biden-Harris administration cannot handle them. They have no international policy. In fact, I will ask everyone, and I know, Jean, that Ukraine is asking for even more help because they have gotten the bare minimum. They have gotten just enough help to say that they did something, but not enough to actually help them stay free. That's why they're asking for more help. That's why they're saying they need more money. They need more weapons because they can't survive with what they have. Because Joe Biden has already written them off. They are a useful tool to be able for the Biden administration to attack Vladimir Putin and Russia and to have that conflict. They're useful. But he doesn't actually want to be involved. He doesn't actually want to commit anything to it because it has nothing to do with America. It's not about American citizens. This is about a political battle. And he can't even phrase that well enough for the American people to get the American people behind it. And again, every country in the world is watching this. They are seeing that America isn't willing to stand by anyone, not even its own people, the trust and faith and confidence in the United States as the police of the world, or even to just live up to the efforts of its own, protecting its own people, doesn't exist. And that is affecting international policy. Countries are less favorable in terms of their trade deals, in terms of trying to provide goods and services to someone they don't trust, which then affects the entire global economy, as it has been doing. I mean, does that make sense? Does it not make sense? Because if someone wants to tell me, well, Mike, you misunderstand the evidence that you are providing, it doesn't give the full picture. Fantastic. What evidence refutes what I am saying? What evidence shows that Joe Biden is willing to go to the wall to back up our allies and our friends and the American people? Where is the evidence to say, no, we have gotten every single American out of Afghanistan, that we are doing everything that we can to help the Ukraine to fight against Russia, that we are doing more than just using Ukraine as a proxy war to have an economic battle with Russia? Where's the evidence? I know the mainstream media doesn't mention this, but then again, the mainstream media has a bias built in. So they don't want you to think about it. They don't want to have this conversation with you, because that would mean you're thinking about policy, not obeying what they are telling you. And that's where the problem gets worse. Let me mention something now. And I see some of the comments. I'm going to come right back to that in 1 second, because it's not just about the Ukraine. We see this on many levels. I had a conversation recently, and you may have noticed that I did an interview with Mr. Kevin Jackson. He is the producer of the movie Bleeding Blue, a documentary. It was a great documentary, and I've seen it. I thought it was really well done, talking about race relations, talking about police, talk about America. And in that conversation that I had with him, I want to just play a small portion of our conversation. Okay, I remember the 1970s when there was racism. In fact, in my life, and I've spoken about this publicly before, I remember when I was in elementary school and I had the older brother of a girl in my class come up to me and say, "You can't speak to her, she's white." Kids today have never experienced a moment like that. They haven't experienced the transition we went through in the 70s, 80s because of the civil rights movement. Mm-hmm. What we have today, they have no comparison. Not to say that
nothing
can be improved.
None of it. Yeah, they talk. Oh, I get followed in stores.
And you can see the rest of the interview for yourself to see the full conversation that we had about Bleeding Blue, about police in America, about race relations with police in America, and how it has changed over time. And I think it's a very important conversation. And I'm not going to get into it overly deeply right this second. Where is it? But I do want you to understand that there's a difference between that and what we're hearing today. This is from Joy Behar. She says, Joy Behar claims that U.S. laws will change when black people get guns. This is the racism. This is the idiocy that we see, that the news media wants you to believe blindly. They blindly want you to believe this, that this is true. It is a lie. Behar says the conversation was, Behar was responding directly to an anecdote by guest Lindsey Granger, recording a black man in Connecticut who she said had built his own AR-15 assault stop. He built a semi-automatic rifle because the law in the state of Connecticut does not allow him to buy that. She claimed that it was odd that a black man, adding that most AR-15 owners are former military, 35 plus, and married. I am a former military member. I'm over 35, but I'm not married. And what is that supposed to mean? That statement is implying that, well, everyone who is 35 and older, in the military, married, or white. That is a lie. That is a blatant, massive lie. So then Joy Behar, who's just as ignorant as Lindsey Granger about this, says, she jumped in and said, here's the thing. Once black people get guns in this country, the gun laws will change. Trust me. Joy Behar is a racist and a liar. Let me say that again. Joy Behar is a racist and a liar. Black people own guns, Joy Behar. This is the problem with the political left. They have no idea what they're talking about. They just need to push this message. They're trying to tell people, oh no, it's racist, it's racist. No, it's not. In fact, and this is coming from Newsweek, a left-leaning organization. In fact, 25% of all owners of the 165 million people who own firearms in the United States, 25% of them, which is somewhere around 35 million people, are black. Hello, black. 28% of all gun owners out of 165 million people, 28% of them are Hispanic. Let's think about this. In 2019 and 2020, 58% of the people who bought a firearm for the first time were black. Joy Behar has no idea what she's talking about. She's just trying to push a message. She wants to get this idea. She wants young people who have no idea what racism actually can be like. She wants them to be riled up to think that they are somehow being oppressed because you don't own guns. You know, a good friend of mine, Maj Toure, has been speaking about this for a long time. And I do advise people, check out Maj. I've done a couple of interviews with him. He's a great guy. And I will tell you, he will tell you, she has no idea what she's talking about. This is a lie. This is a lie promoted by the left to make Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, minorities, to feel like they are somehow being punished, that they are somehow underrepresented. That this is a lie that is being put out there to try and oppress you. And I find it insulting and aggravating. Let me get to some of the comments. And again, folks, you can always call into the show at 607-242-1582. The number will be scrolling from above my head so that you can see it. You can call in at any time, even to tell me you agree, you disagree, you have a different point of view. I'm happy to hear it all. So going back to the Ukraine, John Raines had mentioned that he had saw that they are asking for a 15% increase in foreign aid because they have received the bare minimum and it is not working. They are losing. That's true. Hot Chicks mentions it. We can't sustain this without Ukraine cannot be sustained without more money and weapons. And so this is because we're not trying to help them win. We're trying to have a totally separate battle with Russia. This has never been about the Ukraine. It has never been about the freedom of the Ukrainian people. We have to understand that. This is a political game that is being played, and our heartstrings are being used against us to be able to wage a war, an economic war, in the name of the Ukrainian people. It has nothing to do with them. But this is hurting us because it is increasing more inflation, like Hot Chicks had mentioned. It is causing inflation. It is causing a recession. And we're going to get into that in a moment. Now, John mentions that they keep telling us there's not going to be a depression. Well, yeah, there probably is. We are in a recession. We have talked about that. Users Been Banned mentions that those people living in some weird fantasy world are sure that we aren't tinfoil hat schizophrenics picking up radio signals. You know, I hear this all the time. Well, Mike, you just don't. I hear this from progressives that I know, members of BLM, Antifa, the far left, progressive leaders of tomorrow, otherwise known as Plot, the Democratic Socialists of Ithaca, who believe in violence. I hear this a lot from the left that, well, you just don't understand. I'm showing you the left-leaning media and their approach, and I am asking simple questions based on the evidence that they have provided to us. These aren't out of the world. This isn't out of left field. This is the evidence they have provided to us. This is the information that is available to American citizens that they don't think we're going to look up, that we're not going to investigate this. Well, guess what? That's what I've been doing for 15 years. Yes, I will investigate this, and here's the evidence. Tell me my conclusions are wrong when the evidence is standing in our faces. Yes, use of men. Somehow, Joy Behar thinks that I, Colin Noor, Maj Toure, so many black conservatives and Republicans, we don't exist. They have no idea what they're talking about, but they want to use the message of racism so that you have an emotion and you react without any knowledge. How many people who are watching The View actually took the time to look up the news from Newsweek or any other major news publication, which we have covered many times on this program since 2020, highlighting that of the 7.5 million new gun owners in the last year and a half, that 40% of them are women and 58% of them are black. They don't want you to think. They want you to obey. They want you to have certain feelings, and those feelings are tied directly to elections and power. This is all about politics. It has nothing to do about protecting the people. And this is connected to inflation, which I'm going to get to in just a moment. But it's amazing that these things are allowed. And this is a direct, if Newsweek can point out with Newsweek is considered credible, and they are providing the evidence that Joy Behar and that statement from The View is misinformation, it is disinformation, it is a lie, it has no factual content to it whatsoever. Why is Joy Behar not being removed from social media? Why is The View not removed from TV? Isn't this why they created a disinformation governance board? So that when people misinform the American public, when they say something that is blatantly and factually incorrect, that we can protect the American people. That's what they told us this was supposed to be about. That this is what these groups are for. That this is what they were trying to protect us from people who are saying things that are just absolutely, provably wrong. Why isn't Joy Behar being called out for being a racist? Because that is a racist statement. And why is she not being banned from all social media? Because the left likes that message. They like the public being misinformed. They just want them misinformed to their advantage. That's why they won't ask a question about Afghanistan. That's why they let Joy Behar say racist, ridiculous statements. Because they want you to feel like this is the 1970s instead of 2022. They want you to think that if you are a minority, you are being attacked at all times because you have no idea what it was like to be attacked for just saying hello to a classmate, as I pointed out when I was talking with Kevin Jackson. And I do advise you check out that entire video. You know, you'll say, well, Mike, maybe you just don't understand the full context. Okay, let me give you full context. As an example, in December 5th of 2021, we were talking about the U.S. economy reflects. Actually, I went out of time. Here it is. Yeah. So, and I'm not even going back to the earliest thing I can point out, but just as recently as December 5th of 2021, we were talking about how the Biden policies had already been affecting the American people, how it was already increasing inflation and how this was going to be destroying the U.S. economy. We had come out in February of 2021 making that prediction. But we want you to see this. So when we could point to the various aspects, including the unemployment rate, and how this was being misrepresented to the American people. On January 13th of 2022, we made the video telling everyone, we put it out for everyone to see. We called that there was going to be stagflation and an 11% inflation in the United States by the end of the summer. That was on January 13th of 2022, and we could already see the signs, and we already predicted it. We then updated that on February 17th. Actually, correction, this is our first message. In February 17th of 2021, we told you that the second half of 2021, the U.S. economy was going to crash, that the U.S. economy, because of the Biden-Harris policies, was failing, and they were destroying the United States. And we saw the signs, and we gave you the proof of that February 17th of 2021. And then we, in January of 2022, told you there was going to be stagflation and an 11% inflation. And we can see that under the Biden-Harris administration, month by month, inflation has gone up, 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 and kept going up. It has increased. And this is only until April. Guess what? Inflation is even higher today. We had to update our message in March of 2022, telling you that inflation would actually exceed the 11% target that we had for the summer. And here's what we see today.
Food prices are up 10%, energy 34%. The president has blamed corporate greed. And today in Los Angeles, Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine.
It's outrageous what the war in Ukraine is causing.
Inflation.
He's blaming the Ukraine. He's blaming Putin. Wait a minute. I showed you the evidence. We've been talking about this going back over time. This is February 17th of 2021. He's trying to tell you today that the increase of 10%, that food prices are up 10%, that energy costs are up 34%, and it's even worse than that. And he's trying to tell you, well, that's because of Putin. No, it's not. It's not even close. We have 8.6% inflation in May. That's coming from the Wall Street Journal. From the United States, the Consumer Price Index. Take a look at this. Food at home, 10%. That's a 10% increase. And it's been increasing. This is going back November of 2021, long before Putin ever did anything. Energy costs are at, well, here it is. Gasoline up 50%. Tell me, when you go to the gas pump, the national average has hit $5 a gallon. In California, it's at $7.24 a gallon. We knew this was coming. We told you. The evidence is right in front of us, but this is because of Putin? How? That's not true, and he knows it's not true. Look at this. Energy has gone up 106.7%. 106.7% in the last year. A year, which is long before there was ever a problem in the Ukraine. And you can see its numbers were going up back in November and January, long before Putin did anything. And just like Jason was mentioning last week in his call, we can see that used cars are up 16.1%. Folks, you've been lied to. You have been lied to over and over again. And the news media can't hide it anymore. That's why right now, this is the first time you're seeing this. This is coming from CNBC. CNBC, the bottom line. June 9th of 2022. The recession will hit in the first half of 2023, and the Dow is headed lower. Let's see. Who might have said something about that back in 2021? Who might have said something about that in January 13th of 2022? And they are only now willing to even mention that it could maybe kind of sort of happen. Because Joe Biden is doing something. Because the Biden-Harris administration is doing something. Think about it, folks. They did stuff, and it hurts you because it wasn't effective. It wasn't efficient. That's why you can't ever say, do something to a politician. You can't ask that question. Do something. They did something. And they did something for a long time. They've been doing something for a long time. And only now is the news media willing to admit what they did was bad. Am I wrong? Am I misunderstanding? Have I not told you that? By the way, I hope you have been listening to us. If you have been following just from the beginning of this year, do you know how much money you have saved? Do you know how much food you've been able to stockpile that we've been talking about all year long, saying, don't panic, don't freak out, go to the store, buy 10% more food. Buy food that will last a long period of time. Rice, flour, things like that, canned foods. We've been saying that since January. And if you took our advice, you've saved money. If you took our advice, you're prepared. I hope you did. Because if you're listening to CNBC and Joe Biden today, CBS today, it's too late. The food is missing. The food shortage has gotten worse. The cost has increased. You've hurt yourself by not listening to us. If you're listening to only the major news media, they are hurting you. Let me go back to some of the comments. And again, I'm showing you the evidence. I didn't just one line, maybe sort of. I made many videos on this. I've been very detailed on this for a long period of time. It's not something that I just one-off said, well, maybe. I've been detailed about this. I hope you are listening. Because I want to be wrong, but we're not. And the evidence I can show you, and I have shown you. Hang on. So, John mentions of the people, by the people, for the people no longer exists in the Democratic Party. Well, the Democratic Party is being led by, and I want to make a difference. There are progressives and there are Democrats. The progressives like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Cory Bush, Ilhan Omar, Anna Presley, they have a very unique way of looking. They have the biggest mouths that are very well received by CNBC and the mainstream news media. And they're pushing the Democratic Party further and further left. The American people haven't gone with them. So that's the problem. Even most Democrats aren't with them. I mean, to be a Democrat today is to be what used to be called the communists back in the 70s. So there is a difference. Our user has been banned mentions war would be bad right now. Recruiting from the military is low, and he's not sure if it's historic, but it would be a bad time for it to have any kind of problem with a major power. Well, yes, and it has been, because it's getting worse. They have been downplaying the United States. Remember, the United States, according to the far left, is an evil place. It's a horrible nation. Meanwhile, millions of people are trying to come to this supposedly horrible nation where you have more freedom than anywhere else in the world. I don't know. I tend to think that's a pretty good country. John mentions that the Disinformation Governance Board was started to silence anyone who doesn't agree with them. And I think that's absolutely true. It's the Ministry of Truth. It is straight out of 1984, the book. It is literally meant to silence people, because if it didn't, if they actually had any kind of honesty, if there was any kind of honesty in the rules by social media and internet overlords, then Joy Behar would be banned. She would be silenced, maybe even kicked off of The View. Mind you, I'm not here to cancel people. I'm not saying she should be canceled. I don't believe in canceling people for their words. I do believe in calling them out when they make racist statements, when they lie to the American people, when they are factually incorrect, because I'm not Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I don't believe in being morally correct. I believe in being factually, semantically, empirically, and morally correct. In other words, talking about the truth, not someone's opinion of the truth, but the truth. Now, Users Ben says he thinks that Joy Behar believes what she says, that maybe on some deep level she knows she's wrong, but it makes him feel like a savior. Well, I think Joy Behar did think she was telling the truth, that she actually doesn't believe black people own guns. Because for Joy Behar, in Joy Behar's world, the only people who own guns are her security guards, are the people that she pays to protect her and her property. Real people don't own guns, they own security. She isn't someone who walks down the streets in New York City or LA or upstate New York or anywhere else in the nation. She's not a real person. She's a Hollywood puppet there to spout the Democratic Party bullet points. She doesn't know any better because her world is so isolated from the public, so that she can make these absolutely stupid statements. If she spent 30 seconds looking it up on Google, she'd know she was wrong. She won't even do it. Let me see. Hello, Dal. It's good to have you here with us. I thank you for being here. And I understand a lot of people are traveling. I always appreciate whether you watch the show live or afterwards. I love you all for it. Matter of fact, I should mention that if you have not had the opportunity, if you find this to be informative and interesting at all, please like, share, and subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,234 subscribers. It's not a big number. It's not a big deal, but it makes a big difference to us. And we hope that you'll consider that if you find this to be informative and useful in any way. Dow's mentioning that they're blaming the current disasters on Putin, but the full effects of the cutoff of Russian exports from the global economy are only going to start to really show between the mid-end of July and October. Well, yes, and that's why we've said stockpile food. Don't go out and panic buy. Buy 10% more every time you go out and buy food. Buy more long-term foods. Because we know a food shortage is coming. We know that farmers have said they haven't been able to get enough of the fertilizer that they need. We know that it costs more money. Right now, diesel is at an all-time high. Gas is at an all-time high. It costs more money to take food and all items from one end of the country to the other. To get it to your grocery store is more expensive. That's inflation. So we're telling you, prepare, because this isn't the peak of it. We haven't even gotten close to the peak. It's going to get worse. And as I showed you, now CNBC is telling you that the recession is going to be in 2023. Well, we are already in a recession. We've noticed that since January of 2022. They're trying to minimize this, and in them minimizing it because of the political impact, because they have to get through the November 2022 midterm elections, and they need you to vote Democrat, so they need to downplay this as much as possible. The problem is, in downplaying the serious and real problem that has no plan, well, you're going to be left with less food at a higher price, not being able to feed yourself and your family, not being able to afford electricity for the winter and heat for the winter. You're going to be left with the inability to get to and from work because you can't fill the gas tank. This is the problem. If you're waiting for the government to come and tell you they have an answer, if you're waiting for the news media to tell you they're going to help you and tell you, keep you informed, you're way behind on this. It's already going to be a problem, a massive problem for you, because you're not up to date. And that's why we've been speaking about it all year long. Actually, for 2 years, we've been talking about it, because it's a real problem. And you need to be notified. It's really upsetting to me. John mentions that it all started when Biden signed those executive orders the day he was sworn in. Yes, out of the 77 executive orders, 40 were signed within 2 days. And those had massive impacts. That's why in February of 2021, we could already tell you that the American economy was beginning to fall. That what he had... Okay, let's check. Hello, and thank you for calling into the program of No Soundbites Allowed. I'm your host, Michael Voss, and what's your first name?
Hey, Mike, it's Jason.
Hey, Jason, what's up?
Well, you're just, talking about the inflation and a lot of this, monetary policies and economics and basically, the world economy. And obviously that's a huge hot topic for me. I'm always interested in it. And it's one of those things is where you're starting to see more and more of the complete and total incompetence of the Biden administration. Janet Yellen, who is now the Treasury Secretary and actually the former head of the Fed, is basically saying, whoops, I didn't see, inflation, being, what it is. I thought it was transitory.
Yes.
And, we were being led by an administration who has, an individual who's supposed to have some sort of economic, competence. And the problem is that I don't think anybody, after listening to Yellen speak, has any sort of faith in the Biden administration when it comes to, our economy and what they are doing to tamp down inflation.
Well, think about it. When we've heard from every member of the Biden-Harris administration, including Biden and Kamala Harris, have we heard any plan about anything? They've told us not to worry about it, but they've never actually put forth a plan, good, bad, or indifferent. And therefore, why would we trust? What is there to trust? I mean, am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. And the thing is that if they actually have a plan, they would be forced to admit that the policies that led us down this road were directly the problem of the Biden administration, along with, monetary policies that were supported by the Fed, when it comes to the overall, monetary policies and just the inflationary, manner of just pumping our economy with massive amounts of money. I mean, it was that stimulus that he insisted upon putting out there, which, when you now start to look at it, is what is created, this huge, influx of money, which now is creating, basically just too much, money following too few, too goods. And then on top of that, it's just like, it just has that spiral effect of, continually increasing prices. I mean, look at, we have a situation right now where most people are hit obviously with the food, increases in prices, but also everything, we got gas now over $5, in which, we were talking, specifically were saying, yeah, we're going to have, $5 gas, this time of year, and we're going to even see even higher. And the fact is, though, is that there is actually no position that the Biden administration has actually taken that will alleviate any sort of that at this point. But there are some consequences that we're already actually seeing, with the inflation that are actually having negative effects on our economy, which technically are actually completely, destroying certain sectors of our market. And one of the telltale signs that you're seeing is that the poorer people in our country are really starting to get hit hard, fast. I mean, they've already, burned through all the money from the stimulus, and they're already starting to rack up with the credit card debt. And now you're seeing the fact is that they are not, spending money as they were. And so different companies who make profit, off of those individuals in that certain class are the companies are now actually starting to get hit on their bottom line. And one of the things that you saw, I think recently this last couple of weeks, was this Target, and I believe Walmart as well, were showing that they're actually going to have a surplus of inventories, and that the demand is already being squashed, basically by pretty much, people's pocketbooks are empty at this point.
So if I understand what you're saying that they printed a bunch of money, gave it out to the American people. We spent that money, and because there's no real, you didn't get a raise from your job, you didn't get a raise or a brand new job. That money was a one-time hit. You used it and it's gone, but everything went up because, well, inflation. We printed a bunch of money. Your money is worth less. Things went higher. Yeah. And now we have the problem of you can't afford the stuff that you need. Am I right? Am I understanding you right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's actually even worse than that because people were getting raises. They were. I mean, the job market was so tight, the companies were forced to actually, spend more money on employees to actually entice them into the job. And the irony now is that you have places like Target and Walmart where basically now the demand is tapped, and they already were spending a lot of money on their employees, but now they actually don't need those employees in those positions, So guess what they're starting to do? They're starting to cut those people. But the thing is that the wages that those people have, those are not going to go down, and so those will always be, inflated, for the company. And on top of that, though, is even the fact that these people are making a higher percentage, wage. The thing is that inflation has gotten so out of hand that it's already basically made it so they're making less money, than they were before, even though, they've gotten a substantial raise, but the thing is that this is specifically, this destruction of the economy is happening among the poorest and basically the lower, end of our economy. The problem is that we have the higher middle class and the rich, where they basically still have a massive amount of money. And the thing is that while they, still have that amount of money, they are actually still creating a very inflationary problem. Because the thing is that if these people, who are rich and these people who have the money, they're still spending money or still investing, massively, they are actually continually bidding up the prices of commodities and, everyday items that we buy. And so until that is tamped down, and those are brought back to normal rates, then our entire economy will constantly to inflate. But the problem is that the Fed refuses to actually take the proper actions to actually lower this, while our economy is still hot. Because what will happen is that when they do make these changes, there will be, an increase in unemployment in our country. But the problem will be, though, is that the longer they wait on this, is that instead of having this correction by the Fed taking actions and sucking the money out of the economy now, we're going to have this very slow and painful correction in our economy, and this correction will be simply stagflation.
Well, let's be very clear.
Yeah,
it's already been reported. I believe it was CNBC News that mentioned they did a poll of business owners. 68% of every single business owner said that the inflation recession is coming, and that there is nothing that can be done about it. 100% of them agree there is going to be a recession. 68% of them believe it's going to be near term this year, and that the policies that have been put out will not stop it because the Fed has been slow. Why is that? Politics. Because
Absolutely.
that sounds bad. The economy is the number one issue in the 2022 midterm elections, and that's why we haven't seen anything. Or am I wrong?
Yeah. No, you're right. And the Fed is obsessed with the stock market, and that's part of the reason they've been but the problem with that is as soon as they increase the interest rates, stock market will fall. And the thing is that, the Biden administration, along with the Feds, they've been working, I believe, hand in hand to make sure that doesn't implode, But then then I've observed too is that there has been more sinister, things that have happened. When you look at, to be very specific, and this is one of the arguments that AOC was even having, about the fact that you have, houses of representatives and senators actually buying into, individual stocks. You look at Nancy Pelosi; she goes out, 2 weeks ago, right when the market pretty much, hit its low, and she goes out and buys massive amount of call options for Apple and Microsoft.
Okay, well, people don't know what call options are, so
Oh yeah, but
you're talking about things that people don't know.
Yeah, well, let me just put it this way: they're just say it's just stock, and it's going to increase value. She basically bought stock at a very low value, and she knew exactly where the bottom was going to tank. And what happened right as
But that's common. That's common for members of Congress to routinely be able to buy stocks or take advantage of moves in the market because of the policies that they're pushing forward. They do that all the time.
Yeah, and one of the policies that she would have had to have known to actually have that investment done right when she did it was to know that the Fed was actually going to hold off on increasing interest rates in September. And so what happens is that as soon as they figured that, they're not going to be increasing, in September, that caused the market to rebound and bounce right from that point. And the only way that, Pelosi would have taken that huge investment at that point was she probably had some insight to actually know that was going to be said or substantial.
Let me reword that for people who don't follow the stock market and aren't into investing. Or don't think they're in. If you have an IRA, you're investing. Just so people know this very clearly. If you have an IRA, the IRA owns stocks, you're investing in the stock market. It's important to you. It's not just rich people. But to make it simple, is she knew that the policies, Pelosi, Schumer, many of the members of Congress, they knew that by protecting the Biden-Harris administration, the market was going to have a reaction. Instead of trying to deal with inflation early on, they decided to delay it. That delay made the market go higher, so your IRA looked better, so that you felt good about the Biden-Harris non-policies. But the problem is, when you do that, at some point you have to pay the piper, which is what we're doing now, which is more inflation, less productivity, less jobs, less goods, less everything at a higher price. And that's why the stock market is now going down, because now we're paying the piper, and it's worse than if we did it a year ago. Did I sum that up properly?
Yeah, absolutely. And the big, financial, report that came out this Friday was the CPI. And that's, evaluated the overall inflation rate. And it was a lot higher, than what anybody anticipated. They were not thinking it was going to be that high. The bottom that was another thing that was seen as well too, is that somebody must have, you've probably experienced this in the past. I haven't seen anything like this in myself really, since I've been following the market, but somebody leaked that number, because on Thursday
it always gets leaked. It always gets leaked.
Well, this one definitely was leaked because
they always are. They always are.
This one, really crashed on Thursday. The market all of a sudden started, heading down, to the lows. And then once the CPI was put out, the market continued to sell off, at a kind of, indecisive, kind of way. You know,
because
but the thing is that
we can't hide the recession anymore.
no. And you know, the thing is though, you have the politicians and you have a lot of these big, you know, names, you know, and you got the Nancy Pelosi's out there who are all playing the game with people. And the problem is that, you know, the average American is getting hit hard on this because it's their pensions, their retirements, things that they are being managed basically not even by them. It's managed by the government, are invested in the stock market. And when they're playing these games, you know, to boost their own, you know, financial, you know, wealth and, you know, boost their own portfolios, you know, and totally disregarding, you know, the fact that all Americans, you know, are heavily invested in the market, whether they know that they are or not. I mean, it's a sheer crime, you know. And the Fed and the Biden administration, you know, has proven, you know, when we look at the way that they've acted and dealt with interest rate, you know, they have not been looking out for, you know, the small, investors. They're not looking out for the retiree. They're just simply looking out for their own bottom line and their own pocketbook.
Well, again, they're looking for votes. But let me ask you this. Has there been, you follow the stock market, you follow the news on the stock market, has there been another news organization, large or small, besides this channel, that has been warning people since January to buy more food, to prepare for the food shortage and inflation? Is there anyone else in the mainstream major media that has mentioned this at all?
Mainstream media, no. Nobody's touching, you know, food, you know, to the extent that, you know, you're trying to touch it here. And I think what it is though is that, like you were telling me before, it's kind of the, you know, the boring kind of thing. And it's kind of, you know, it's not something everybody's looking at. I mean, when we were talking about, you know, I'm talking about wheat commodities like 4 months ago, saying, oh, geez, you know, they only got like 10 weeks left before the entire market's going to be hit and we're going to see massive, you know, shortages and starvation. Nobody cared about it. And
no, because it's not real. It's not real.
And not real. And, you know, even so, too, is that it will be delayed even farther because the thing is the American people won't see the impact of the food, you know, like you said, probably till October or November, you know. But the thing is that the people who are really suffering are the ones who are in more of the third world countries who are dependent upon, you know, direct imports from other countries.
Well, they're already suffering. We already know that. We see that in Africa. We see that in Sri Lanka. We know it's happening right now. The fact that America, we live a lap of luxury. To be as fair and honest as we can be, we live great lives that everyone in the world hopes that they could one day even get close to. So the impact to us is going to be far, far less than everyone else. But I still think this is going to be, I mean, look at it. We've seen inflation double in a year, and it's still not at peak. It's going to be worse for us than we have ever seen. Let me ask you, have you ever imagined a time where we had high and in rising inflation and at the same time we had a shortage of food? Ever?
I would never. Well, I mean, the bottom line is that after when COVID hit and I saw what the government started doing, you know, with lockdowns and other sort of, you know, policies, economic policies, I started getting the feeling at that point that they basically could really destroy, you know, our entire economy. Now, I never really I couldn't predict because I didn't really have the knowledge to understand exactly, you know, what all these monetary policies and, you know, these economic decisions that they were making were going to actually, you know, what was going to happen and how it was going to be created. Because quite frankly, I was, you know, to a certain degree, a little bit naive as well, too, and thinking that maybe it was going to be transitory because, well, all the experts kept saying it's going to be transitory, you know. And in the back of my mind, the more that I started researching, reading, I'm going to myself, I'm like, look, you know what? I don't think they're right. I think they're full of it, you know? But I wasn't 100% confident to actually know that because I'd never seen it before. And then after, you know, now that we are where we are, and all of a sudden, you know, Janet Yellen is basically saying, oh, yeah, I totally didn't see this one coming. And I'm like, great, you know, the so-called experts, you know, the geniuses, the ones
I saw it coming. The experts missed it. I saw it.
Yeah, it's just, it was something that was coming. And I mean, I mean, I'm talking about right when they started releasing the first stimulus and having that monetary money coming without any sort of productivity.
Actually, you know, I've said it back then too. I have the videos to prove it.
Yeah. I mean, it's intense though. But yeah, did I think that we were going to have, food shortage? We're going to have that. Look, I never, I, you know, at some point, I figured that the Biden administration, honestly, my biggest problem, especially trying to predict the market is that I honestly thought that the Fed at some point was going to get real and increase interest rates, So when it comes to somebody who's observing the market, who's trying to do investing and trading within it, basically you're trying to predict what's going to happen. And if you think that the Fed is actually going to get serious and increase interest rates, then you're thinking that you would predict that the market was definitely going to go down at certain points. But the problem is that the Fed never was doing this, For an entire year, been waiting for them to actually take the action necessary to make things right. And they refuse to do it. And you're just like, it's beyond logic and reason, to try to understand exactly what's happening, unless again, they are motivated simply, to prop up, just a few select, elites, in this country, and they're not looking at the entire, economic picture of every individual here, and that's one of the things that frustrates me the most, especially when it comes to Democrats, is they're always going, oh, Republicans are all Wall Street, they're all, all they care about is corporate and all this other stuff. I'm like, no way, man. Nobody's more corrupt, or people are more corrupt than the Democrat Party when it comes to Wall Street. There are more Wall Street corruption, in the Dems than I could ever imagine that would be, within the Republican Party. They knocked, Trump all the time, going, oh, he's just this wealthy billionaire.
I don't care about Trump. Trump is not in office.
Well,
Trump lives in there. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I was just talking specifically the example of the economic their economic, scrutiny on somebody who has an excessive, large quantity of money. They were going to knock him for the amount of money he has and, potentially the way that it was being earned. But yet you have these politicians who are directly earning, their money by manipulating the market. They directly manipulate the market. They do things, and they say things that they know that are going to cause, a pop and a fail in the market. And you know what? When they do that, they're constantly making investments and jumping in and out and taking advantage, just like Nancy Pelosi just did last week.
That's been something that's been long-term. It's been a long-term problem, and it's been very consistent, and they all do it, all of them.
Yeah.
But we've been talking a lot about economics. Let me change it up a little bit. Did you hear about, before I let you go, I want to ask you, did you hear about the fact that there was a group of people arrested in Idaho because of they were planning to riot at a gay pride event?
No, the Gay Pride riot. What organization was the one who's planning on doing that?
Supposedly, it's a white supremacist group.
Right. Yeah. You know what? I feel that that's a Jesse Smollett type of thing, because I don't see there being.
Okay. I didn't think most people heard about it, and I didn't think you heard about it. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. And so I think people will find it interesting.
Yeah.
It'll be very, well, people will see. But I think you're right. We've been talking about the economics for a long time. I know I talked to you about it as well. Most people don't get it, which is why I want to make it as simple as possible for people. Because you're right, but I don't think people understand it. The simple thing is, if you have an IRA, you are part of the stock market. It's not just rich people. If you're in a union, you're part of the stock market. What politicians are doing to manipulate the stock market is affecting your bottom line, your savings, as well as affecting your ability to buy food and to pay for your rent, your electricity, and the fact that they don't have a plan, any plan, other than get through the midterm elections. That's their plan. Get through the midterm elections. They don't care, and that's hurting people, poor people more than anyone else.
And I was going to, add is that one of the things that you did an interview with Arthur Lather, and one of the things he was saying is that if the Biden administration and the Dems, don't change their course, on their economic policies and their approaches, he's literally saying that it could be 10 years before the Dow, makes a new high. And
Yep.
I was just like that's in my mind. I was like, well, that's impossible because everybody's always saying, well, just wait out the dip, and just
No.
hold the money, and eventually, it'll turn around. But I'm like, well, turn around? What do you mean? Like for 10 years, what Arthur Lather is potentially predicting? I mean, like that's pretty. That's devastating. I can't imagine the market not making a new high, from what it did, this year
It's
for
very
10
possible.
years.
It's very possible. It's called a depression.
Yeah.
And it is very realistic. And if people haven't seen it, please do check out, like you did, my interview with Dr. Art Laffer, a international Nobel Prize winning economist, talking about the American economy. It's an exclusive that we were able to do because Binghamton University kicked them out. There you go. It's again, progressive leaders of tomorrow don't want people to know about the economy because it's bad for certain political groups.
Yeah, look at it. Arthur Lather was right on with a lot of these different, situations when it came to the economy, especially during this whole period of time with the government's manipulation, of the monetary policies, along with basically, the massive, unemployment for the period of time where people weren't working. He predicted this. He said one of the big things is if people don't return back to work and we don't get the job rate up to what it was prior to the pandemic, then we're going to be hurting. And guess what? We still are not actually at the same job rate prior to the pandemic.
No, there's less people working.
Yeah, there's less people working. People don't, and then Biden would make you believe that he created more jobs than any buddy in the world before. No, he actually is still behind Trump, where he left the economy before the pandemic.
Well, again, that's something that people don't understand. It's going into economics, but the reality is, we are recovering jobs. We're not creating jobs.
No,
we're doing that at a
exactly.
slower pace than ever before, and we have less than what we used to have in 2019. So he likes to say that he's doing a great job, but then again, he also likes to say that you couldn't buy a cannon when the Second Amendment was first created, and that's a lie. So, and he tells you that everyone's home from Afghanistan, which is a lie. So I don't have a lot of faith in what Joe Biden says.
No, it's insulting,
Mm-hmm.
And I get away from the economics for 1 second. I just wanted to touch on some observations.
Okay, and then we got to go, but go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I don't want to get you up on time, but this one is just my perspective of our culture and the way that we're treating individuals based upon the color of their skin, and the way that the Democrats at every turn want to make it an issue over color is that I see that it's extremely abusive, especially to children, to believe that you are one, you're a victim, and the same standards, within our government shouldn't apply to you because of the color of your skin, because of the fact that there's historical, precedent that said at one point that because, individuals who were black or had brown skin were, treated, in a discriminatory fashion, and so what they do is they alternately change, that, policies, to apply to them, to put them under different standards. And the thing is that I've observed, myself, just with little, situations where it comes to, just even like a, local carousel where, I'm watching, a group of kids, who are basically, it's almost like they're disciplining themselves. They're supposed to make sure that, the carousel runs in a fine tool or something like that, But I've observed that, there's apprehension, of children to go and actually correct individuals who are black and brown skin versus being white skin. And the only thing I can account for it would simply be because, they have been told that, they shouldn't do that because, because the person is black skin or has that they have a disadvantage, or they shouldn't be held, by the same, standard due to that. And the destruction that causes by not disciplining people, at any point, and then allowing them to continue to behave in a bad manner, without being held accountable is just abuse.
That's why critical race theory is horrendous, because it divides the public. But again, look at the Democratic Party. What do we see? The progressive movement is about separating people into different categories and turning those categories against each other That's why the left cancels the left on a regular basis, because they constantly have to have a conflict and a division, because and not a unity. And you see that most obviously in Joe Biden, who said, "Oh, I'm going to unify America," and he's done more to separate Americans than pretty much anybody in the last 2 years.
Yeah, and thing is that was proven exactly why you were, at BCC, because you saw, the detrimental effects when students are educated in this course of education, is because they start to behave and they apply those principles when they're dealing out in public, and everybody's always asking, well, I haven't seen it being taught in schools, or haven't seen that. I don't see the
talking about
ramifications.
critical race theory.
Yes,
and
critical
my
race
protest
theory.
against it at
And your
Bloomington.
protest against it, BCC, and the thing is that like I said, I observe myself the behavior of people being reluctant to actually take actions because they're applying those principles out in our community. And like I said, it's abusive, and it causes it just causes sheer chaos.
I agree. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but I agree. And yeah, I think people should see the videos I did about the protests at Broome Community College, or otherwise known as SUNY Broome, and see for themselves if it makes sense to them. But I thank you for bringing that up, because not enough people see it.
Yeah, and like I said, the reason I wanted to mention that is because a lot of people, don't relate, critical race theory and actually see it within their own, community. And I just observed, a situation that actually showed exactly what happens when that principle is being applied and how detrimental it is. Because, we're talking about kids on, dealing with a carousel, but if you carry out, if not to mention, if you're never disciplined, then, where are you going to end up? You know what I mean? In life, what sort of path are you going to end up taking, And it's just, like I said, it's not to mention the fact that it destroys communities, And like I said, I wanted to, point to what your position was and why you were protesting, against it, and how, that is directly negatively affecting our community. Because I don't think people see that huge connection. I was trying to make, maybe a point to link that together for you.
No, I understand. And I think I thank you for that, because I think more people need to look into it. I don't think they notice it when it happens, because the media isn't saying it happened. They say the exact opposite. But I'll get into that in just a second, because we're going to talk about what happened in Idaho just yesterday.
Okay.
But I want to thank you for calling in and touching on so many different subjects.
All right. Yeah. I'll talk to you later.
Absolutely.
Yep. Bye.
And folks, you can always call into the program. It's 607-242-1582. You can see it above us, and you can add your comments. And again, you can talk about whatever it is you think is important anywhere in the world about these issues. But they all, at the end of the day, they all come together. If the United States is being torn apart, if we're becoming more divided, well, so is everyone else in the world, because we lead the world in that direction. Look at what happened in Canada. Because Joe Biden has been talking about trying to ban 9mm handguns, well, we see that Canada has decided to effectively ban 9mm handguns. And we see that the rest of the world is making sure that their public can't be able to defend themselves against governments that are using more and more power to hold people down. And that's a problem. And that's what we're seeing. And so that's why, just like, and when I say hold people down, I want to be very clear. What we've been talking about, the food shortage, about inflation, about how the economy is falling apart, that's holding you down. The people who are most affected are people who are poor. The people who are most affected are the people that they're saying they're trying to protect. But they're not. They're holding you in that position because of their bad policies or a lack of a policy. That's what I believe. But let me show you. Yes, and I think Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is an absolute farce, and he is insanely abusing the people of Canada. I think he's been doing that over and over again. We saw that with the truckers. We see that with his abuse of people for just speaking out against him. But they don't have this First Amendment in Canada like we do here in the United States. And so that's why it has a different impact. Now, I did promise I'm going to be getting into gun control, and there is news, breaking news, like we started the show about what's going to happen with gun reform in America and how it's going to affect your life. Just like critical race theory, like inflation, like food shortages, this is yet another thing that's going to affect you. And you're being told it's great news that this is going to protect you, that you're going to be okay. Just like how they're protecting you from the food shortage by not talking about it, how they're protecting Americans in Afghanistan by not talking about them, by protecting you from inflation by doing things that actually create even more inflation. They're going to protect you with gun control. We're going to get to that in just a moment. But first, I wanted to mention they came to riot downtown. 31 people were arrested, and they have a tie to a hate group. This is being reported right now out of Idaho. And what they found is there were a group of individuals who are connected to a hate group that came together so that they could go to apparently they were going towards a gay parade in Idaho. And they all got arrested because an individual saw them. What happened is a person, what was it? There were 31 people that all got into a U-Haul truck. They're all wearing the same exact.
I think we should.
They're wearing the same exact clothing, and they had shields with them, and it seems that they were going into this organization. Now, to show you, these are the people that were, as you can see, they're all wearing khaki baseball caps. They're wearing blue shirts, white masks over their mouths, khaki pants. There were 31 of these individuals, and they were all in a truck, in a U-Haul truck, as you can see. Were they up to no good? Apparently, yes. Do we denounce that? Yes. We denounce any hate group that would go out and try to seek to cause harm. Now, the thing that I find interesting about this story is that looking at Idaho, like many other states, if you're looking through the law, they don't actually have anything that says these guys were arrested on the attempt or the plan to commit a riot. Okay, a conspiracy to commit a riot, which really doesn't fall under the law in Idaho. It's a federal law. It is 18 U.S. Code 2101. That's why on this program, we like to show you the actual laws, and in the description, you will see the link for everything that we're describing so that you'll be able to see it for yourself. So they were arrested under 18 U.S. Code 2101, which is about riots. And it says, whoever travels in interstate or foreign commerce or uses any facility or interstate foreign commerce, including but not limited to mail, telegraph, telephone, radio, television, with the intent to, and this is where it gets important, to organize, promote, encourage, participate, or carry on a riot, that these individuals have committed this crime. What I just described to you is every single autonomous zone in the United States from 2020 all the way to today. That is the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, the Austin Autonomous Zone, the Atlanta Autonomous Zone, Boulder, Colorado, they had to have one. That's every one of the BLM events. But yet, those people were released. These guys are arrested, and they rightfully should be. My point is, why don't we see an equal playing field where we're seeing the left and the people who are committing riots, like in Portland, like in just recently in LA, there were riots every day. Well, a couple of days. There were riots in LA because the rumor of Roe v. Wade being overturned They were out, they were destroying police cars, they were destroying cities. Why weren't they treated in the same way this hate group is? Because that's still hate, isn't it? And it was organized by groups like BLM and Progressive Leaders of Tomorrow, otherwise known as PLOT. It was done by the far left. Why don't we see an equality there? See, this is the thing that makes me upset and why it's making this more prevalent. White supremacist groups were almost wiped out in this nation by the end of the 1980s. By the 1990s, they were almost non-existent. Not that they didn't exist, they were almost non-existent. They couldn't get members. They were smaller than ever before. And somehow, in the last 5 years, actually the last 3 years, we've seen a huge resurgence. Because at the same time, we've seen critical race applied theories. We've seen Joe Biden come in and say, hey, I'm going to emphasize grants based on people's skin color. We're going to define laws based on people's skin color. We have people like Joey Behar who are saying, well, it's gun ownership is based on your color of your skin. We've had a massive amount of misinformation and rhetoric that is driving people towards these crimes. And I have no problem with the fact that these 31 individuals in Idaho got arrested under 18 U.S. Code 2101. My problem is, why don't we see that happen with people on the left? What about the groups that worked with the assassin that tried to kill Kavanaugh, Justice Kavanaugh, a member of our Supreme Court? Why aren't they being treated the same way as these individuals who are going to a gay parade to commit a riot? They were rightfully arrested. Okay, if there is proof that they in fact were going to commit a riot at a gay parade, yes, they should be arrested because it's a riot. Riots are a crime. That's not based on your ideology, it's a crime. Anyone who's trying to create a riot should be arrested. I don't care where that is. But yet, when they are just shy of rioting, but actually violating federal law with our Supreme Court justices, that's okay. What about the guy who went from California to the homes in Maryland of these Supreme Court justices with a firearm, which is illegal? It's illegal in Maryland. Concealed carried his weapon illegally in Maryland to go and assassinate the family and the Supreme Court justice. Now, think about that for a second. Because if he had targeted Justice Sotomayor or Justice Kagan or Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, you would hear that this was racist and that this was some kind of insanity, that we had to go and investigate every single person who he ever spoke to on Twitter, Facebook, wherever it was. We need to know every single person he's ever worked, every job he's ever worked at, where he went to high school. We would be looking at everything in his history to find every single person that could be possibly connected. But because it was Justice Kavanaugh, because it's conservatives, they treat it differently. And they say, well, they're white supremacists, so they must be Republicans. Well, no, that's not a fact. They're white supremacists. They're insane individuals. They're despicable. And yet the Republican Party is very happy to say, we denounce these people. They're not part of our party. They're not part of us. See, unlike the left, the right says, okay, these extremists, they're not with us. They're not part of us. They don't represent us. But the left, but we hear from the news media, well, no, because they're on the right, because they're extremist right, they're part of Republicans. But the extremist left, like Antifa, well, no, they're separate. They have nothing to do with us. Assassins that are trying to commit, they're following up what Chuck Schumer and what's her name, Maxine Waters, all these Democrats, when they have said all these violent statements, well, no, that's totally separate. Do you see what I'm saying there, guys? They treat these things as very different. It's insane. Hang on, let me go back to some of the comments here. And again, you can always call in to 607-242-1582 to tell me what you think about this. But I think it's important that we understand there is a clear and explicit difference in the law, in legislation, and most importantly in the media on how we should feel and think about these things. I'm not saying that the people in Idaho, this group of white nationalists, shouldn't be arrested. I'm saying, why aren't the black nationalists, the black supremacists, the Antifas of the world, the progressive leaders of tomorrow, why aren't they arrested? Why, when they did get arrested, did we release them? What are the rules? It's anarchy. What are the rules? Is it U.S. Code 1820? Is it really going to be 18 U.S. Code 2101? And we arrest these people for conspiracy to riot, or do we let them go because of the color of their skin? Those are two different rules. What is the rule? Who gets to decide that rule? Who gets to choose? And this is important because if they can choose one way today, they can choose a different way tomorrow. They can abuse that power, and they will abuse that power against you. Do you see why I'm upset about this? Because it has very little to do with the white supremacists. It has a lot to do with our government picking and choosing the laws and the people that are going to be affected by laws. And eventually, that means that they're going to come against this group or that group. How long before they start going after black conservatives or black Republicans more than they already do? I mean, they're already after Larry Elder, Larry Sharp, me, Mashure. There's a bunch of us, Gothics. They don't like any of us already. They already tried to attack us, to silence us. Like Kathy Hochul was saying, she has to shut down hate speech because she doesn't like what we say. That's troubling. And I think that's a part of a way of looking at this that we do not hear. John Cordisco has joined the chat. Thank you. I'm glad to see you, John. And I'm glad to see that they have lifted all of the, YouTube has lifted all of the restrictions on your channel, and I'm happy to hear that. So, Jason from Bing mentions, it's ironic how the government, some on the left, are prosecute the pre-crime, but they won't prosecute the pre-crime of other organizations that happen to be left-leaning in their organization. You know, it's very troubling. It's a continued purge. And they're targeting more than just these people, because, yes, we are seeing this, as was mentioned by Jen. The January 6th Commission is yet another example of this. Rules are being set to one standard for one group of people, but different for another. The whole point of having law is that we are all the same, regardless of your religion, regardless of your gender, or your sexual preference, or your color of skin, or your income. You're supposed to be treated the same no matter what. If you violate the law, you should be prosecuted under the law. Period. There are no excuses. There is no get out of jail free pass. This isn't Monopoly. Everyone gets treated the same. And if people want to say, well, January 6th, there are the people who committed violence. Fantastic. That would be a riot. Those people need to be arrested. There's still 500 more people who walked in and were allowed. According to the courts themselves, over 500 people were allowed to enter the Capitol on January 6th without any violence. They didn't even cross the walkway, the lines, the roped off areas. They didn't violate that. Over 500 people out of the 724 people who were being charged with crimes and held in jail for trespassing. That's over 500 out of 724 people who were arrested. There is no sedition. And yet, there's a different set of rules because they have a different political ideology. There's my problem. The rules changed because the politics changed. You can't run a nation like that. That's not protecting anyone. Does that make sense? If you think I'm wrong, please tell me why. I'm going to check the comments. Tell me why I'm wrong if that's not the case. Call into the program, 607-242-1582. Tell me how I am wrong that we are seeing a divergence in our law, which is based on certain criteria. What checkbox do you fit? Are you a white male? Are you gay? Are you straight? Are you black, Hispanic, a woman, transgender? These categories are growing and growing, and you get treated differently under the law depending on which one of those categories you happen to fill out. That's not law. That's just not law. Well, maybe under an authoritarian dictatorship it is, but it's not freedom in America. So, I know that January 6th, John Cordisco mentions extremists on the right 0.00001%, extremists on the left 35%. And whether the numbers are exactly correct or not, the mindset is correct. That we have this extreme large group of individuals who think it's perfectly fine. Let me get into this a little bit. I was going to talk about China, but I'll come back to that. Let's talk about what we see. And when you say that, you're right, John. Because we see extremists, Joy Behar, The View, are extremists. These are extremists promoted by the media. And they get to make statements that are factually incorrect, that are meant only to incite racial division. And they do that a lot. And Joy Behar does it a lot. Like when she says, black people just don't have guns. It's a lie. It is a factual lie. And I don't have to go any further than the far left to find it. Newsweek will admit it themselves. 25% of blacks own guns in America. 28% of Hispanics own guns in America. But what about Brett Kavanaugh? What about this guy? And this is from CNN. Armed man arrested near Brett Kavanaugh's home, charged with attempting to murder not just a U.S. judge, a Supreme Court justice. And this is from June 9th, when we saw the news breaking. And I'm using CNN just as an example, but I want you to understand something. So this guy gets caught. We don't know about his color of skin, although we find out mass shootings and anywhere where there's negative news about a gun, we know instantly the type of gun that they have. We know the color of the skin of that person, and we know their political affiliation. As of June 9th, when we saw CNN talking about this, they're saying he's armed. They won't mention that he has a gun. Look at all the other news about guns, especially if it's someone who's white and they think they might be conservative, they have an entirely different title. So this guy, he's armed, and he's taken in, and he says, Roske indicated that he believed the justice, the Supreme Court justice, that he intended to kill would side with the Second Amendment decisions that would loosen gun control laws, which there's no evidence of that. And more importantly, that has nothing to do with whether or not the Second Amendment allows you to loosen gun control or gun laws. So he wants to kill someone because he doesn't agree with the gun laws. And Roske stated that he began thinking of how to give his life purpose and decided that he would kill the Supreme Court justice. This is where the left have pushed someone. He's doing this because he told, again, Roske, the shooter, said he told law enforcement he had traveled from California to kill a specific United States Supreme Court justice. And this is also in part because of, as we later find out, his view on Roe v. Wade. Why is this not being headline news? Why don't we know where this guy worked? Why don't we know whether he was on Twitter or Facebook or YouTube? Why have we not seen his social media content? If he made any other threats and comments there, what groups was he connected to? What organizations? Who helped push him towards this decision? Who radicalized this left-leaning man such that he would decide, oh, the only answer I have is to go out and kill a Supreme Court justice? Well, I can't help if it sounds like there's an echo, I can't help it. Okay, I'm not sure why that's the case. I'm getting a comment that I'm getting feedback. Hang on. Now it should be gone. Now it should be gone. Okay. So this is the thing I'm trying to get for you guys. We have this difference in our laws based on politics and how the news media is putting this out. And it's very insulting. It's very upsetting that we're hearing people who are looking at this and they have such different views. I'll go to ABC. ABC, armed man, not gun, not a terrorist, not a violent criminal, no, it's an armed man. Notice how they de-escalate the words because he's on the left. Armed man arrested near Supreme Court Justice Kavanaugh's home, charged with attempted murder. Well, actually, assassination of a Supreme Court justice. He had a gun, don't know what kind of gun. He had 2 magazines. What were the size of the magazines? Were they 10 rounds or less? Were they 30-round clips? Makes a difference. The left tells me it makes a difference, so tell me the answer. Pepper spray, which is legal, we think, zip ties, and more. They left out it's illegal for him to go to California, to Maryland, with this gun. And looking at this again, they're talking about, oh, well, everyone's upset. He was angry about the mass shooting, so he decided to commit a mass shooting. Shooting the Supreme Court justice and his family would be a mass shooting. So this guy, angry about a shooting, decided to become a criminal as well. This is where the left thinks. This is how this is the thought logic they have. Let me be violent because I didn't like what you did or what you didn't do. Because I don't like your decisions, your way you think, the way you believe, they want to be violent. This is where they come from. He's from Simi Valley, which, by the way, I've lived out in California. Simi Valley is not known for its liberal leaning. He's spotted by 2 U.S. Marshals. He was wearing black clothes. You know which organization does that? Antifa. And carrying a backpack as he got out of a cab in front of Kavanaugh's house at 1:05 a.m. in the morning, middle of the night. Imagine if, for some reason, police weren't around. What would he have done? He had a Glock 17, which is those evil 9mm that Biden says will blow out your lungs, which is a lie. He had 2 magazines of God knows what kinds of size. A hammer, a screwdriver, nail punch, crowbar, pistol light, duct tape. This guy was going all out. Going all out. And I don't know which groups he's aligned with, which leftist organizations. Where did he get his news from? They want to tell us about misinformation, disinformation, about the internet radicalizing people. Okay, then what websites was he reading? Where did he get his news from? Where was he being radicalized from? Let's play by the same set of rules. Let's find out who he was listening to. Let's shut them down, because that's what they say about the right. We got to shut down those right-leaning websites because, ooh, that's radicalizing people. This guy's on the left. He's radicalized. What's the left-leaning sites we're going to shut down because of what he did? What organizations are we going to investigate and have the FBI go after? Oh, no, but he was acting on his own. How do you know that? How do you know that he wasn't working in conjunction with progressive leaders of tomorrow? How do you know he wasn't working with Antifa as he dressed in the same manner as Antifa? How do you know he was not encouraged by some left-leaning website or Twitter or something else? How do you know that? We don't know that. Aren't we supposed to investigate that? And why isn't that getting the same kind of news media coverage as if it was someone on the right? Think about what happened with the guy in Buffalo. We almost instantly knew about his websites. Hello, and thank you for calling into No Soundbites Allowed. I'm your host, Michael. And may I ask, what is your first name?
Hi, Mike. It's me, John. How
Hey,
are
John.
ya?
What's up?
Doing okay. Okay. Got a meeting tonight of What is a Woman by Matt Walsh I'll be going to.
Oh, yeah, that's supposed to be very good. Mm-hmm.
Yes. There's also a free streaming on the Look Ahead America Discord as well
Oh, fantastic.
for tonight. You can find that through Look Ahead America Discord and everything like that if you're already a member. But called in because I kind of wanted to jump off saying it seems to me, and especially with this incident, the left, especially now, is getting more and more brazen than ever before.
Yes.
Even everyday leftists. And I'll use an example. A friend of mine was jogging in DC, and she was wearing a USA hat.
Right.
And she went out for a jog, then she went into a small diner.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And in the diner, this guy kept looking at her. And everyone kind of noticed. It was very, very weird. And even the waitress came up and goes, "Can I help you?" And he goes, No. And finally he gets up. He starts arguing with her in the middle of a restaurant with a hat she was wearing.
Really?
Different political beliefs. Yeah.
And so,
Confronts her.
so his natural decision was someone might, it could be just a hat that she found, something she had. It could be a memento, it could be a whole bunch of things. But because she dared to have something that disagreed with his politics, his initial answer is, I now have to confront and verbally assault someone.
Yes. Yep. You can see Jack Sobick was talking about this. Morgan Zegers, by the way.
I know Morgan, yeah.
Yes, I don't know if I call her a friend, but someone we've worked with in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Full disclosure, but she posted this story on social media and it got me thinking. It is so I think part of the reason is, and I don't know how much this to say, I think part of the reason the left is getting so brazen is because the police's hands are tied with all of the rules and reform and defund the police that are actually going through. I think their hands are tied. I think they're getting more and more brazen because of it.
Well, look at what we've seen so far. Of the tens of thousands of people who have been arrested across the United States throughout the BLM riots and since, they were all released. Every single one of them. No charges were made. In New York State alone, there were some 6,000 people that were just dropped the charges. 6,000 people. And what kind of message is that putting out there? And then we have the news media that says, well, we're going to investigate every single nuance of the Buffalo shooter's life. But the assassin, an admitted assassin, well, we don't need to know anything about him. That story is not important. We can keep going. And by the way, it wasn't just that the assassin, that story was dead and thrown away. Democrats, in particular, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, according to, and I have this on the screen right now, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez brags about blocking Supreme Court security bill after Kavanaugh assassination plot. And it says in this article, which came out June 11th, yesterday, at 11:37 a.m., she's bragging that I wake up this morning and I start to hear murmurs that there is going to be an attempt to pass the Supreme Court supplemental protection bill the day after gun safety legislation for schools and kids and people is stalled. That's H.R. 7910, which is a whole nother thing. She continues, oh, so we can pass protections for us, thinking about legislators, which isn't true, and here easily, right? But we can't pass protections for everyday people. I think not. First of all, H.R. 7910, as I've gone into in detail, doesn't protect a goddamn single person. But this is our Supreme Court. This is part of one of the three branches of our government. This is a high official, and she's saying, no, 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 I want him to be as unsafe as possible. Do you think she would say the same thing if it was Ketanji Brown Jackson or Sotomayor or Kagan? Do you think she'd have the same answer?
No, I absolutely agree. I think the other issue right now too. I mean, the left needs its own. I mean, there was an interesting article in Politico about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Ruth Bader Ginsburg's legacy, where all these women's rights groups held her in such a high regard, but a lot of them are starting to feel frustration with his comments and past comments, especially with Roe, whom, if I remember correctly, RBG did not agree with the decision.
She didn't.
So
she absolutely thought it was wrong to say that it was connected to privacy.
Yes, you would know that. That's why I double checked with you. But this is kind of where we're at. It seems that we're just going so far, and people are getting more and more brazen because, for some reason, I'm not quite sure why. Other than the only reason I can think of is bail reform. But I mean, this is just going on more and more. I'm finding.
Well, we're seeing it's a vortex. I think that. Yeah. So to react, a politician does something that the far left doesn't like. The answer is violence. Roe v. Wade, a rumor comes out. They have riots in L.A. They have riots across the country. Then they go to the homes, which is in crime. That is illegal. And they go to there and they they're breaking the law, trying to change the opinion of Supreme Court justices, intimidation and coercion. It's a crime. They're not arrested. Then a guy comes over and tries to assassinate a member of the Supreme Court because of his presumed ideology. This guy doesn't even know what decisions, there's nothing that Kavanaugh has actually decided on that made him do that, other than he thinks he might one day possibly rule in a way that isn't for the left. So that means he's going to kill him. A bunch of white supremacists see that and say, these guys are out of their rocker. Let's go out and we're going to have our own riot. Do you see how this feeds into each other? Now there's going to be another cycle. Well, now all the LGBTQAIP++ whatever in the alphabet are going to get together and they're going, oh my God, we've got to protect ourselves. And we've got to go after these guys because they may come after us. And then you have another cycle of violence. This is counterproductive.
Yeah. And, it also reminds me of what just happened to Tim Pool in the quartering.
Yes. They got swatted. For people who don't know, two things. Swatting is a term. It means that when someone is on a live stream, like I am right now, and members of the left don't like that, they will claim that there is some kind of violent action happening. Like someone has a gun, someone's been murdered. They call that into the police anonymously as a tip so that the police will come in and stop the person from being able to speak. This has happened to Tim Pool about 12 times, and it happened to another YouTuber, The Quartering, twice. So go on.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean it's a terrible thing, and it gets people killed. It just seems to me, especially now, people are just getting more and more brazen about it. Um, it's it's honestly a bit scary if you're speaking out, but it needs to be done too. That's the other thing about it. I mean, I don't think it's gonna work. These intimidation tactics, and even a couple months back,
Mm-hmm.
and I think I remember talking to you about it, with Joe Manchin, right?
Yeah.
The left blocked his car. They traveled to his boat in the middle of the lake. They found him. They
Mm-hmm.
chased Kristen Cinema into a restroom,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And guess what happened?
Nothing. None of
Doesn't
those
work.
people were arrested. By the way, the person who went into the group of people, actually, there was 3 of them, that went into the women's bathroom at a college with Senator Kirsten Sinema and recorded her in a women's bathroom, which is illegal, and it's intimidation, and it's coercion, so it's several crimes. But just being in the bathroom, including a man in that bathroom, was a crime. They, 2 of those individuals were illegal aliens. They didn't have a right to be in America. They were trying to cause her to change a law. They weren't even American citizens. They're Mexican citizens, and they didn't get deported. Where is the balance of law?
It's insane, but the good news is these tactics aren't going to work at the end of the day.
But they are working to an extent. They are working to an extent.
To an extent. But did Cinema and Manchin change their vote?
No.
Do you think Brett Kavanaugh is going to back down?
I don't know what his decision was, but I don't think he would change it. If anything, this may cause him to become what this assassin feared.
Yes. I think the left needs to, if they want to succeed at all, they need to take a step back, and they need to, because I think this is only going to help the red wave.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
You're a younger man than I am.
That's true.
And
That's-
what I yeah. But what I see is that the left, the reaction that they're being taught, and I think this is a taught thing from high school, from college, is when someone disagrees with you, that is a microaggression. Therefore, you are authorized, since they've done an aggression against you, microaggression or whatever. Now you have the right to attack that person. You can attack their character, you can attack them personally, and you can attack them physically. Am I misunderstanding that?
I wouldn't say it's a microaggression. I would say that they cannot handle the fact that someone disagrees with them. This generation cannot handle that fact.
And that's the problem. I think they can't. If I say, and as we have said on the show, the answer is, well, that's hate speech, that's not approved, that you're wrong.
They shout. That's their first reaction. If you want to go back to what happened at Binghamton a couple of years ago.
A great example.
Opinion.
Yeah.
Scream, shout, break stuff. You know? It's this generation just does not, the younger generation does not understand that you can disagree. You know? You can be friends and disagree.
And I want to be clear. We're not saying that the white supremacists in Idaho or anywhere are good people. We're not saying that this is a good thing. But I'm saying there is a serious disconnect between the way we're treating people on the left versus the way we're treating people on the right, which creates 2 tiers of law, and that creates a problem. That just makes it worse. Am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. And I think the reason for this thinking of people can't handle differing ideas is the idea that's been driven into their brain that they are the greatest individual alive. They are special. They are, special snowflake, and that they seem to be the main character of the world. The world revolves around them because everyone is perfect. They don't need to change. It, everyone else does. That's what they're being taught, and I think that's part of the problem.
I think that's a major part of the problem. And, we cannot, I just want to show, this is one of the examples of BLM and progressive leaders of tomorrow known as plot. Here I am at an event. This was back on August 12th of 2020, a Back to Blue event. And,
I remember this.
And
yes.
On screen, I'm showing people, this is how they dealt with it, as they tried to attack, silence us, to shut us down, to invalidate the voice that we had. This is an old woman. This was an older woman. She had to be in her 70s, and they were trying to silence her. They were being violent, as the left would define it. They were putting microaggressions against her. And this is what the left seems to think is the right way to react. And the news media agrees and is kind to them. And AOC, members of Congress, are out there laughing and bragging about this and saying, no, it's okay. If you're trying to kill someone that we don't agree with, I won't protect you. This is what I take from this article from Yahoo News, that AOC is happy to prevent members of the Supreme Court from being protected while they are being stalked and people are trying to assassinate them. Let me ask you a question, John. Do you think that the AOC and these left-leaning people, that they're trying to protect you? If they won't protect the Supreme Court justices, do you think they want to protect you?
No, they only care about themselves. They'll defund the police, who are, the general population protectors, and they'll get private security for it, like we've seen in California.
Well,
with these big names who want to defund the police and everything like that.
You mean like Cori Bush, who spends $70,000 of taxpayer money to provide herself with a separate private security force, and Nancy Pelosi has the Secret Service. So does Chuck Schumer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're 100% on the money, and this kind of ties in what I actually called about Mike.
Sure.
Who did a interview the other day, and you saw the movie Bleeding Blue.
Yes.
And for your audience who doesn't know, it's a documentary by a man named Kevin Jackson, who's a black Republican who does a look at what the police are facing nowadays.
Right.
Mike, I wanted to get your take on the documentary. I know you talked a little bit about it in the interview. I want to know, as someone who saw it, I went to the live screening of it, which was very, very cool. In Arizona, there was a private showing. They rented out a theater to show the documentary, and I walked away, and I remember texting you, saying, Mike, you got to see this documentary. You love it. I wanted to hear what your take was overall.
Well, and I think it's interesting because it does connect to what we're talking about here, different rules for different people. The documentary, I think, deserves more attention. The reason it was made in 2018 by producer Kevin Jackson, who I interviewed. And I think it was a very well done documentary, kind of like What is a Woman? A very well done, well produced documentary pointing out the facts and giving the public a perspective that isn't one that is already approved by the mainstream media or the far left, progressive ideology. It says, hey, here's what's going on. Here's the information. Here are facts that you can see for yourself so that you can have now you have the information to make a decision. I think that Bleeding Blue gives us a very unique way of looking at police and the interaction between police and the black community that isn't the one that we hear from BLM. It's from the police officers, it's from family members, it's from black police officers. It's their interactions with the public and the way the media is framing that. And when we see that, just like what is a woman, we see them saying, okay, and what is a woman? From what I can see, from the interviews I can see, the question is very simple. What is a woman? Please provide me the definition. In Bleeding Blue, the answer is, do police help the black community? Are they targeting black men? This is the question. And we know the answer from the left-leaning media is, well, you have to assume it. It has to be the case. And yet the documentary shows us evidence that says, no, that's not correct. That is a myopic tunnel view. And I think it's important for people to see these things. Just like when I reviewed and I did watch Planet of the People, Planet of the Humans, by Michael Moore, talking about green energy, which also didn't get a lot of attention. Why? It didn't approve. It wasn't the approved message that we get from the news media. It actually tells you the honest truth from left-leaning sources about how green energy actually is produced, how effective it is, and whether or not it will live up to the promises we were given. In every one of these cases, we see the reality has nothing to do with the message that is being pushed on us. And I think that's terrifying. I think that's why people need to see these documentaries, to be able to understand there is a very big difference between the propaganda and the reality of our lives.
I completely agree. And I think that's, and I say every time I call in, I'm pretty sure that's why your show is so important, because it is it is not the mainstream media. To be honest, you don't have to worry about buying ad space or, people buying you off or anything like that. This is independent journalism, commentary, right?
Yes.
You don't have to, I think a lot, and I think during your conversation with Jackson, you touched upon that, right? Do you think Don Lemon believes what he's saying? Or do you think he's a donor?
Well, Kevin, who's worked at CNN, he's been on the programs with CNN and some of the other MSNBC. He has a very nice way of saying it. I think that one of the biggest sellouts for the black community is Don Lemon, as well as MSNBC and CNN, that they have bought out to the left, meaning the progressive ideology. And it's kind of like Joy Behar on The View. They will say anything. They will lie to your face and say it's an absolute fact when every observable fact tells you they are wrong. They don't care. Joy Behar, she's getting millions. Don Lemon gets millions. He's got private security. They don't care because it's not affecting their lives. And it's their friends, their livelihood is based on them pushing this progressive message. And they're not honest enough to say that.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And you're right. They need the donors, they need the views, and they have to get more and more outrageous in order to get that, right? We have an entire section of news media based on this now. Clickbait, the term, as probably many people know.
Yeah.
Right? They have to get outrageous things because, and this is especially true for TV media, because less and less people are watching TV media.
Well, that's why we're seeing all of the streaming services, they're actually reducing the number of outlets and charging more money because we're more popular than anything else. I saw this, I think it was Jack Prosovic mentioned recently, when the last swatting attempt was made against Tim Pool. Tim Pool thought it would take 10 minutes. He kept his cameras on. 3 hours. All you saw was his empty office where he does his show. 40,000 people watched an empty office waiting for Tim Pool to come back. Most of the primetime news media couldn't cover the same numbers. People were more willing to watch Tim Pool's empty office than to follow the message from the left. That should tell you about how there's a shift and why they are so desperate to push this ideology on us, because they're losing the ability to influence us, I think.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the average CNN program, I think, is around 300,000 viewers, I want to say, right around there.
A little bit less, but yeah. And that's for a national organization that has revenues in the tens of millions with over 3,000 employees. Yeah.
Yeah. And you look at someone like Nick Rekieta, who I've been a fan of for a long time for his trial coverage. You look at the Johnny Depp coverage.
Mm-hmm.
1.1 million viewers on his live, 8-hour live stream. And it's one lawyer in the middle of Minnesota with a camera.
Yeah.
You know?
Because people, I think most people recognize on some level that they're being lied to by the mainstream media. And we've shown it on the show. Again, going back to when we were talking about they're going to protect us from inflation. They're going to protect us from the food shortage. And yet here I am, and I'm able to show you one guy. I don't have a team like CNN or MSNBC or any of the majors. I'm just one guy. I'm not like the New York Times with 10,000 employees. And I can show you, no, they're not protecting you. They're not protecting you from inflation. They're actually making it worse. They don't have a plan for a food shortage, but I'm trying to give you one. Mm-hmm. It's that obvious that we can see that they're lying to us. We listen to Joe Biden as he repeatedly says, well, one, you're only black if you fit conditions that are beneficial to him. And we hear him say things like, well, 9mm guns. He's like Representative Sheila Jackson Lee. 9mm will blow out your lung, and they're massive weapons of death. No. There is no logic. There is no fact behind that. You can't own a cannon. Yes, you can. You can't own a machine gun. 730,000 machine guns are owned by American citizens right this second. So they're lying. And they expect that, well, you have to believe us because we're the major news media. I can show you the evidence, and I have. That's scary to me.
And I think it says something when bigger names want to go on your show than they want to go on some of the major news networks for an actual conversation, right? I know, I think more people enjoy going on your show and being able to talk, like Kevin Jackson, like Matt Brainerd. Some of these big names want to talk to you rather than they want to talk to some mainstream media guys.
Well, I find it interesting, and it was mentioned by Jason earlier. We had Dr. Art Laffer come on to the program because Binghamton University refused to let him to speak. It's like, why is a college, an institution of learning, denying people being able to learn about economics? It may be a dry subject, but there's no reason why you can't hear it. And their answer is, well, no, you just can't because progressive. That's a dumb answer to me.
And it goes back to they can't handle a different voice, but and that's what's so interesting. You're always willing to give people a shot, left, right, center. You'll have anyone on, and you'll have that conversation, an honest conversation.
I'm more than happy. You know why? Right this year, why I've had so much of a problem getting. It's an election year. I do interviews with, and people may have noticed I've done several interviews with some candidates for election. I'm happy to do that. And you know why the left isn't coming onto this program? Because they all know I'm going to ask them, how many Americans are in Afghanistan right now? What are you going to do to try and get them back home? No one, not one person on the left wants to answer that question.
Yeah. Not one person wants to answer that because I don't think they know the answer either.
No one does. Every source that I have, doesn't have an answer.
No, I don't think they have any. I think, and that to do with a larger problem. But you're going to ask questions that are tough, but yes, that the mainstream media doesn't want to ask because that would upset sponsors and everything like that. So it's a weird juxtaposition. But thank you for letting me call in, Mike. I appreciate it. Always great to talk to you.
Always.
Posted the link to Bleeding Blue, the movie, in case anyone wants to check it out. Like I said, I saw it. I immediately, first person I said was like, you gotta see the movie. And you ended up really liking it. I think a lot of people are. And I'll let you know how What Is a Woman is tonight after I see it. One of the local groups is putting it on, the College Republicans United.
Right.
I'll know how that is. Thank you again, Mike. Always great to talk to you.
Always great to hear from you, John. Thank you very much. And I do recommend people go and check out What Is a Woman. I think it's whether you agree or disagree, you can't know until you actually see it. I mean, I've seen some of the clips of it. It seems to make sense to me that it's a question to ask and to have answered. And I think it's important because we're told blindly, just believe. I'm sorry, I can't believe a government that can't answer the question, how many Americans are left in Afghanistan? I can't trust a government that's telling me inflation's transitory. I can't trust a government that doesn't have a plan for a food shortage that they told us is going to happen. I have questions. You should too. I can't trust a government where we have individuals, elected officials, who are bragging that they are denying American citizens the right to be protected. They're happy about this. And by the way, AOC is saying, well, they didn't pass Protecting Our Kids Act. I've gone over this before, and I will show you. This doesn't save anyone. In fact, the latest news is that there's going to be an agreement between Republicans and Democrats to pass not this bill because it's crap. It does nothing for you. Raising the age doesn't stop anyone. They're not going to preventing gun trafficking. Gun trafficking is already a crime. Ghost guns aren't an issue. Safe storage means you don't have a Fourth Amendment right. The only way that they know you have it safely stored is if they come into your home. Closing the bump stocks. Bump stocks aren't a problem. No one's heard about bump stocks for years. It's not an issue. And the last one is large capacity magazines. 10 bullets isn't a large capacity. It's just another way to stop you. This is all designed to leave you unsafe. That is a fact. And so we're supposed to believe a government that's telling you, well, these things are going to make you safe, except none of them address the problem of you don't even have to go to mass shooters. Why did the leftists from California go to Maryland to kill a member of the Supreme Court? If you can't answer that question, if you cannot say what made him decide the only answer he had was to kill a member of the Supreme Court, if you can't answer that, then you're not going to make people safer. But we see that the new thing is that they're talking about there's going to be a gun deal. There's going to be a gun deal. And again, I mentioned it a little earlier, and I'm going to get to the comments in just 1 second.
A few minutes, but we have some breaking news. It appears that Chris Murphy.
Sorry. I meant to show it to you.
We only have a few minutes, but we have some breaking news. It appears that Chris Murphy and John Cornyn have come to an agreement on a deal to do something when it comes to reforming our access to guns. Leanne's got some of the details. This is your breaking news. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I was just told from a source that there's going to be a deal announced on gun mental health legislation today around 11:30, 12 p.m. Eastern time. And this deal is going to include the things that they had been talking about, incentives for states to implement red flag laws.
The United States government is going to pay your state to create a law that doesn't work, and they're going to pay to put people on a list to deny them their rights. I have talked about red flag laws over and over again. They don't work. In 19 states, in every single state, there is not one study, and they love to quote the Duke University study that I have read, that I presented as part of a review to the New York State Assembly and the New York State Senate. An 8,000-page review with 150 sources going over red flag laws don't work. They don't stop suicide, and they don't stop mass shootings. They do not. What they do is they deny you your right to due process. They do take your property. They do stigmatize you in your community and take away people's jobs and take away people's children. That is what red flag laws actually do. And as an example, in New York State, there have been 1,409 red flag actions as of April of 2022. So from 2019 to April 2022, 1,409 separate red flag actions have been made. The kid in Buffalo went out and, even with red flags, he made a mass shooting. Red flags don't work. But the government, the federal government, is going to use your tax dollars to pay your state to pass a red flag law so that they can take away your kids, they can take away your property, and you will not get any due process. Does that sound like a fair exchange? Does that sound like that makes you safer? At the same time, by the way, this is going to cost extra money in a time that we have inflation running rampant because the government is just printing more money. Does this sound like it's going to make you safe at all? And yes, 10 senators did vote for this, but I want to show you what they were talking about. So again, red flag laws do not work, and I have presented for years evidence of that. And this is why they cannot quote one single state or one single incident that was stopped by a red flag law. But let me go back. Let's hear what else is in this.
It's going.
But don't call it a red flag law,
They,
right?
they have a different name for it.
Because red flag laws don't work, they're going to change the name. It's a marketing gimmick. Yes, that's the way that's the answer. How can we make people safe? Well, red flag laws won't do it. Change the name. Okay, that'll work. Now it's more effective because it has a brand new name. Marketing. Does this sound like this is good for you? Let's go on.
It.
Yes.
It's much more complicated. There's going to be a separate background check process for ages 18 to 21 years old.
Oh, we're going to divide the nation again. If you're under 21, let's be clear. 18 to 21. So you are an adult. You are a legal adult. You can go to war for the United States. You can die for your country. You can vote in elections. You're a grown adult. You can sign contracts, all of that. 18, you're a legal adult. You have to wait until you're 21 before you can own a gun. Because, wait a minute, let me see if I understand. So you're not responsible enough to be able to own a gun until you're 21. Okay. But at 8, you're responsible enough to change your body for the rest of your life. That doesn't seem to make sense. That doesn't seem logical. I'm old enough at 18 to go and spend $100,000 on getting a college education because I'm mature enough for that, but I'm not mature enough to be able to own a firearm. That doesn't make sense. I'm old enough to vote. I'm old enough to die for my nation, but I'm not old enough to defend myself, my home, my family. That doesn't make sense. Again, you can tell me you want to see something done about gun, and I'm just telling you what's effective. By the way, criminals don't care about red flag laws. Criminals don't care about due process. Criminals don't care about age restrictions. That doesn't matter. The kid in Texas, Uvalde, had a handgun. It is illegal in Texas for an 18-year-old to have a handgun. The age restriction did not stop them. It's just that simple. That's not prevention. That doesn't make you safe. Is that not making sense to anyone? It is that simple. You are not protected. Let's go on with what we see from NBC News.
There's also going to be a lot of money for mental health services. There's going to be money.
That actually makes sense. For once, there's something, because all these people are mentally deranged. So that's the first thing that they said that makes any sense.
To secure schools. And so this is...
That makes sense. Let's secure the schools. Well, gee, we heard that from Parkland, Florida. The review of the Parkland, Florida shooting said that we need armed security in every single school, because having someone who is armed will protect kids. I hope that's what they're talking about. I doubt that's what they mean.
There's going to be a clarification on who needs to apply for a federal firearm license.
Wait a minute, a federal firearm license? You mean to be able to own a machine gun? To be able to own a tank? Or are you talking about gun dealers?
That's an additional kind of background check.
As a dealer.
Yeah, because there's a lot of people who are illegal.
Okay, because there is a federal firearm license to let you own a tank. And people do. And people own machine guns. And people own flamethrowers. And that's not a problem. So now we need a new license for gun dealers, because some of them are breaking the law. As if that's going to change it. They already have a license. It doesn't change whether they're law-abiding or not. Okay, so this is stupid. And I want you to see. And CNN, of course, goes into it. A bipartisan group of senators announced agreement on gun control. Yes, 10 senators are joining the Democrats, which means this will get passed. Critically, the legislation includes so-called red flag provisions, with the government providing resources to states, in other words, money. Resources is money, your tax money. And to tribes to create and administer laws to help ensure deadly weapons are kept out of the hands of individuals whom a court has determined to be a significant danger to themselves or others. Doesn't happen. Hello, and thank you for calling in to No Soundbites Allowed. I'm your host, Michael Voss, and may I ask what's your first name?
Mr. Mike, John Curtisco. What's up, buddy?
Hey, John. What's going on?
It's funny. I'll like to mention the 10 Republican senators that caved. I'll bet you that 95 out of the 100 senators know that this new bill does absolutely zero. In fact, might cause more harm than good.
Well,
they're just doing it because they're covering their own behinds, especially the ones that are up for re-election.
That's the answer. They're up for re-election, and that's why they're doing something. But it's not effective. I mean, I think I just debunked every part of this bill.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, this has nothing to do with whether it's effective or not. It has zero to do with that.
Because you notice they didn't say anything about criminals. This isn't about stopping criminals at all. It's about...
Oh, they consider anybody with a gun a criminal, a lot of them, frankly.
It would seem so. Again, it's another part of this two-tier justice that's dividing our nation.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the funny part. I was around, during the civil rights era of the late 1960s, I was in junior high and high school. And I remember vividly the Vietnam War and all the riots and all the protests. We even had a protest at MacArthur School over the war, which was the only reason to get out of class, the only reason why we went. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is their mantra, their number one theme since I was a kid was a two-tier justice system. Number one mantra.
And that's what we see today. We see that in how they treat the assassin against the Supreme Court, how they're treating the white supremacists in Idaho, how they're looking at regular American citizens that own guns, 165 million people.
Well, if they had changed, they made a change with that kid that went to Buffalo. In fact, the weird part is I remember that kid. I remember his face. He came in my store a couple times. I didn't know him personally.
Right.
But the thing of it was, though, it seems like all that nonsense he did and said before he was 18 was sealed. Now, if they had changed the law and said, hey, you say crazy stuff like that, you threaten a graduation class or anything worse, we're not going to seal that when it comes to you looking for a firearm. I would probably would have went along with that.
Right.
But they didn't. It looks like anything since, so that means if I'm 17 years old and 11 months and I threaten my school with all kinds of craziness, and then 1 month later I turn 18 and apply for a gun, that doesn't count anymore. That was the loophole. If they closed that loophole, I would have zero problem with it.
Yeah, if you have a pre-existing problem, then there's an issue. I can live with that, but that's not what they're saying.
But here's the thing, though. If you have a pre-existing issue before you're 18 and they steal it as of today, when you turn 18, they're saying that anything you do or say after that is appropriate. Well, if anything you do or say is appropriate as an adult, but you're still not adult enough to purchase a firearm.
Well, if I'm not an adult enough, there's a couple of problems here. One, let's look at the red flag law. Now, they did pull in the Buffalo shooter for a psychiatric review. He lied, kind of like Hunter Biden. He just lied. He lied so that he could get the gun that he wanted. So he lied.
My understanding, the investigation that I've done is when he threatened his graduation class, he basically took pride in the fact that he tricked them and said, well, I only did it so I get out of going to graduation. And they said, oh, okay, it's just a prank.
Right. So again, that's a very clear way to show us red flag laws don't work. It's not effective.
Yeah, so you have a 17-year-old with obviously psychological issues, and he managed to fool several, we'll say, mental health professionals in like 10 minutes.
Yeah, but this is going to make us safe now. By the way, red flag laws target.
No, they all know it's not going to make us safe. They all know it, except for the cult members, of course. But the people that are in charge, the senators, most of the congressmen, not all, but most, they know this whole thing has nothing to do with safety. They know.
Am I wrong when I say that they're just passing this so that they can go to their electorate and say, hey, I did something, not that I did something effective or efficient or something that will make you safe. They say, I did something. So when it fails, they go, I didn't do enough. Reelect me, I'll do more. Am I wrong?
So I have a leaking roof, and so what I did was I mowed the lawn and I cut the hedge really beautifully. Look how nice it looks.
Yeah. Oh, but that didn't fix it. Well, you know what? Reelect me, I'll do something else.
No, what that's for is for the ads that are coming up in November. They don't want an ad that said, you voted against this.
They don't want to add, like, it's HR 7910. I actually named the bill because the government doesn't like to mention this, because you, the public, might look it up and read it, and you'll see the link in the description. They want to be able to say, this is called, I'm showing it on the screen. It is the Protecting Our Kids Act, HR 7910. And they want to say, I'm protecting our kids. I voted for the bill. That guy doesn't want to protect your kids. He didn't vote for the bill.
Well, you say that the people won't look it up and read it because but they don't read it either.
And that's the problem. Somebody has to read these things. It doesn't work. It's just meant to separate people.
So we get ginned up a little bit. People that are pro Second Amendment.
Yeah.
Take a breath and see that this is just to cover their own behinds. Now, we have to ask, what harm will it do?
I can see
That's
a
the
lot
real
of harm.
question.
Well, here's what I think, and I know for a fact it's true, that red flag laws have been used since 1999 to target people and to punish them and to for their political views. It has been used as a political weapon.
Now, the classic example of that is James O'Keefe. He came here in upstate New York, all around the Binghamton area where we live. And he went to several gun shops and was denied when it went through the federal background check. Well, when he was a kid, he had a lousy misdemeanor he pled guilty to, recording somebody inside a public place or some nonsense.
Acorn. It was the Acorn.
And after he raised hell on the media, he went back to a gun shop. The miracle of miracles, that red flag disappeared.
Yeah. This is all politics. And it's not protecting people. This isn't a plan. I mean, the only part of it that sounds even remotely useful is that, okay, we're going to fund the mental health, which is something that they cut the funding for in the first place. Back in, what was it? Was it 2000? It was when you were still in government.
Wait, just because the federal government cuts mental health revenue or money to help states or whatever, how they worked it, they probably give the money to the state and let the state work it out. Well, you know what? All these states that are screaming states' rights pick up the slack.
Should be, but no.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have it both ways. I remember when I was a city councilman, we used to get state and federal grants. Well, this is all money that's not taxpayer money from the area. Well, it comes from somebody. So, say I was just in Tennessee. They have a constitutional carry there. They started last June. And you say, well, we're going to lose $800,000. We'll say $1 million for mental health. Oh, we're going to have to pick up that $1 million through our budget. We'll just change the budget around, maybe find some different revenue sources, whatever you do to raise that money if we really cared about the mental health. We only care about it when somebody else pays for it.
And that's the problem. We're all paying for this. And notice they didn't mention how much this is going to cost. And they don't mention how much money they're going to give to states. And this troubles me. Tell me if it makes...
The one thing that bothers me is the 72-hour rule they want to change.
Well,
so you apply,
right,
and it goes through the federal, and if it's 72 hours, they don't come up with an answer, they have to let you have it. That's my understanding of how it works now. In other words, the federal government cannot drag their feet forever giving the gun shop an answer on whether you should be able to buy it or not. So they put a time limit on it.
I'm not necessarily upset with 72 hours for them to do their job.
That's my understanding when they want to open-end it.
I don't want it open-ended. I want, get the answer, yes or no, make it, do your job, get this decision.
And if you can't come to a conclusion, the answer is yes.
Right.
Yes, you can have the firearm, and that's basically how it's set up, but they want to extend that indefinitely. In other words, kind of like New Jersey and New York, especially New Jersey, instead of shall issue a permit, may issue a permit. Well, that may could take 2 or 3 years.
Well, that's like the problems with the new bills by Governor Hochul, where they said, okay, so every 5 years you have to get a new license. And here's the problem. I've talked to attorneys about this. Okay, so this year I get the license. 5 years from now, 5 years and 1 day, I go and get my license renewed. New York State says, oh, this time we're not going to renew it. So now, instantly, at that moment, you are a criminal for owning unlicensed firearms. The government has the right to come and take it away from you. You're a criminal because the government said, no, you can't own the property.
It's actually worse. You're not a criminal. You're a potential criminal.
No. According to Kathy Hochul's new gun legislation, you are a criminal. If you get licensed and you own a firearm, rifle, handgun, shotgun, and 5 years later, you have to go back and get you have to get it renewed, which means you have to pay for the whole process all over, which is a financial burden, which is bad. And that's just like the Jim Crow laws. But then the government, New York State, has the right to say no. And the second they do that, they already know you have the guns. you are guilty of having illegal possession of firearms.
That's true.
You're a criminal.
That's true.
This is creating a class of criminals that they can pick and choose who they want to target. And now, okay, Mike voted Republican. He's run for Congress.
Your ex-wife finds out that you've been. I've been divorced since '86, so it's been a long time, 35 years. And I applied for a gun, and she finds out. One of my kids knows and mentions it to her, so she decides to get a hold of the feds and say, my ex is a nut bar. He's crazier than blank. Blah 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 blah. They'll stop me from getting that firearm.
And they have done that already. That's what red flag people use red flag laws exactly that way.
But here's the thing, though. The person, in this case, my ex, she wouldn't do it anyway. But even if she did, they sign an affidavit under penalty of law.
Yes.
Well, then they turn around and say, "Well, that was just her opinion of which she's entitled to."
Yes, that's a loophole.
And so she can't be prosecuted.
Nope. Because she believed he was right. That's the burden in the law.
I believe I'm a woman. Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
That's it. I believe that it's true. Therefore, I cannot be held responsible for using this as a weapon against you.
My opinion is the world is flat, and in 2082, Martians will come and take over the U.S. government. That's my opinion, which I am entitled to, so I can write it on a piece of paper. That's a government document that I swear is accurate.
Yeah. That's essentially what they're saying.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
It is in essence what it is. But anyway, just to get off the guns for a minute, all of this, in a weird way, being an elected official, I kind of see it from the elected official's point of view in part. Now, I've never been a U.S. senator, ever been that important or powerful, just a local councilman, no big deal. But the mindset's the same. How do you cover your own behind?
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of ways, I'm not defending the 10 Republican senators. Don't get me wrong. I can't use the language you want to use because the channel will be taken down, or at least this live feed will be taken down.
Right.
The thing of it is, though, they're just doing what the public wants. Therefore, they gain votes. So who's really to blame here?
Well, I think it's like I showed in the clips from NBC. It's not what the public wants. It's what the public is being told to want. The answer.
Okay. I get that part. Yeah, but in the end, it comes out the same, though.
Well, no, because they're being told, do something. That's what we saw on NBC. The clip I showed initially. He says, do something. Well, and we're being told that's what we should be asking. That's what you need to ask. That's not what we should ask.
That's the position of Democrats and leftists longer than I've been alive. We need to do something. We need to do something. We need to do something. Do something. Well, no. Make this illegal. Make this harder to get. Do this, do that. It's in their DNA, and they just can't get rid of it. It no more than a dog won't chase a cat. It's just they can't ever not say, listen, there's nothing we really can do. Maybe we make the schools more secure. Maybe we can, check on the mental health of students, take it more seriously, whatever the reasons are. I mean, I can't get in the federal building here and locally without, ID and check me out, the metal detector and all that, but you can just walk right in the school. I mean, it's nuts.
I know. Did you notice, let me ask you this. Did you notice that they said they're going to change the name of a bill, which when they said, we're going to change the red flag names. We can't call it red flag. And I have to think, it's because it doesn't work and no one wants it.
Well, there's an old saying, if you paint a turd white, it's still a turd.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing. It's just amazing.
But they know it won't work.
But who's the weird part? Millions of people fall for it. So who's really the chump here?
It's a good point, but it just upsets me so to hear. Okay, we know we can't pass this if we tell people what it is. So let's change the name. Then they'll let it go through.
Yeah, I'm not a garbage man. I'm a sanitation engineer.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I'm a sanitation engineer. Oh, all right. That's good. Can you pick up my garbage?
Yeah. And it's the same exact thing.
But there's that 10, 15, 20, sometimes maybe as high as 30% that falls for it every time. So who's really to blame here? And we can always say those people believe the things they do because of social media and cable news and all that, and that's all fine. But if you're an elected official and you're a Republican senator, and you say, this kind of sucks, but it could have been a lot worse, so I'll vote for it or I'll go along with it, just so I don't have to see those ridiculous commercials this October saying that I hate children and want to see them die.
And that's the worst way to react to something. But speaking of it,
I'm not defending them. No. I'm just saying that's the human reaction. They're humans too.
I know, and they're taking advantage of it. I know. Well, let me ask you something completely different, though.
Okay.
I saw you had a comment, and did I see it correctly that you saw the movie What is a Woman?
Oh, amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Okay. Let me ask you, the statement coming from the left who have not reviewed the film, they have not watched it, they have not reviewed it, but they're saying it's evil and it's anti-transgender, it's homophobic, blah, blah.
Well, that's what me saying, John, can you give a review of Mike V on his weekly Sunday live stream? Can you give a review of what it is? And I've never seen it before. How do I do that?
Well, the left seems to have no problem doing that in this case. But since you have seen it, can you tell me, is it homophobic?
Not to be a spoiler, but there's one. What everybody says is he sets up these leftists to make them look really stupid and ridiculous. Well, actually, he doesn't. They do it to themselves. And the classic one, it's not really a spoiler. He's talking to a gender studies professor outside of Nashville.
Right.
And this guy, you can tell you can't see it, but you can tell by his, you pick up body language and mannerisms.
Right.
And you can tell this guy his brain is just contorting in all different directions. Like he asks him what a woman is and why do you want to know? And he says, well, I'm a seeker of truth. That's why I want to know. And this guy you can see his brain is going in contortions.
Oh, I saw that clip.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, there's a little extended version of it in the film. Yeah, he has a couple of nut bars on there, for lack of a better term. The one trans woman there that associated as a wolf or something. Yeah, he has a couple of nut bars. But the ones that were really effective were the one physician, the woman, and then one woman that was a trans woman that was a surgeon.
Mm-hmm.
Those were the two that make the entire video documentary, for whatever you want to call it. And to listen to those two talk is chilling. Absolutely blood chilling to listen to them be so casual about doing horrible things to children. It's like if we could go back in time, we had the internet during the late 1930s before the war broke out, and listen to people from Germany that are high up officials, SS officers. It is that chilling.
It's eugenics.
Well, eugenics was, and that's the thing. Eugenics was the talk of the town in the early 1900s. It was taught at all the major colleges, professors, everyone, all Democrats, all of them. It was the new groundbreaking science.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they all went with it, and it's completely useless. But it was the thing then. It was truth then.
Yeah, it was like, and that's how, we see these visualizations, how, give you an example, during the Olympics of the 1930s, Jesse Owens.
Yes.
Just him winning took that entire eugenics crapola and threw it out the window in less than 1 minute. And that's why Hitler left the auditorium. But that little tiny snippet of film took their entire ideology and threw it in the garbage. That's how effective that video, and now we have the internet, and they're being exposed, and they don't like it.
Well, I think it's as simple as you're telling me that an 8-year-old is wise enough, experienced enough to make a decision about their body for the rest of their lives, but an 18-year-old isn't smart enough to be able, or responsible enough, or wise enough to be able to handle a firearm correctly.
Well, what they're saying is an 8-year-old, when they decide that it's a young boy at 8 years old and decides he wants to be a girl and goes through everything, that isn't harming anybody else. That's their take.
Okay, so the answer is you can harm yourself, but you can't harm others.
Right, but you're not really harming yourself. You're only finding your inner self.
But you don't know what your inner self is. You're 8.
I mean, yeah. I mean, an 8-year-old kid, 10 years old, even 16-year-olds are malleable mentally.
Well, they're telling us that 18-year-olds are malleable mentally, and that's why we can't let them have a gun. Well,
they are. I wish the voting age was 21. To be perfectly frank.
Well,
but that's not going to happen because you're going to be an adult at 18, and all the rules that are for and against you at 18, you should be able to vote too. I get that legal part.
I understand. I'm saying 18. You're legal, then you're legal. Period. 21. If you want to make it 21, whatever. But it's always should be the same thing. But let's look at this from the argument that they are making to us that this is going to protect us. That the best thing to protect you and people around you, that's what red flag laws are about. Protecting you and others is saying that you can destroy your body at 8, but at 18, you can't have a handgun or a
that
firearm.
Decision, I'm just playing, I'm not being devil's advocate. I'm just looking at these nut bars' point of view. It's the parents and or parent. And many, and I'll get my PBS voice when I say this, trained professionals that decided that this kid is someone who should change their sex.
This is just...
Whereas if you get a gun, you don't have trained, again, I got to do the voice, trained professionals looking to see if this kid could have a gun. That's the way they look at it. And it's twisted.
Well, trained professionals created Planned Parenthood because of eugenics.
Yep. Yeah, well, what is it?
Margaret Sanger.
I forget the number of blacks in the United States. What is it, 17%, 12%? I forget which one it is. But 40% of the abortions are people of color. And the vast majority of Planned Parenthoods are in inner cities with a higher percent of non-white people.
Yes.
Those are just facts.
Yes, those are the accurate numbers, yes.
And that is modern eugenics.
It sounds like it to me. I don't know how someone looks at this and doesn't say, this is a problem. And more importantly, we are a nation that's supposed to be able to ask a question. And yet we're hearing from the left, no, you can't ask that question. You can't ask. In other words, why not?
Like they changed the name of red flag to something else. Yeah. They changed eugenics to my body, my choice.
And then when you ask about it, you can't ask that. Why not?
It's the same word switch. It's the same.
I think so. And I know, and I'll tell you what they say. Well, the internet is having a lot of these leftists like that nut that went after Kavanaugh and causing all this harm and radicalizing people. The internet is also waking people up by the millions as well. And I think that's in the end is going to happen. I don't want to tie up too much of the time because all the people want to call. Mm-hmm. But these people are panicking. Like I said, they're going 100 miles an hour down a road. And the road is going to run out. And they're in for a big, huge crash, and they see the road is running out, and they're just lashing out their last gasp at trying to be relevant and have influence, and it's going to fail. And then they're going to freak out for a few years, and then this thing will level off, in my opinion. That's an interesting point of view.
They're all standing on dinosaurs, and they're looking up at the sky, and they see the asteroid coming. There's nothing they can do to stop it. So they just lash out and do the stupid things they do because they don't know what else to do because in their mindset, we have to do something. Well, that's what they're doing, and they're just digging the hole deeper, and they're just making it worse for themselves and their ideology. Thank God they're not rational people, or they would use the media in a better way, but they don't. And it's really amazing, and it's going to crash for them. I mean, how would you like to know, no matter, even if you're a progressive, that every single thing you've believed in your entire life was wrong?
And that's why they
that
will not
affects
agree
you
with it.
psychologically badly.
That's why they don't want to have the discussions, I believe, because they can never admit they're wrong. You're destroying their world, their worldview. And so they have to tell you you're wrong.
Crumbling. Their world is already crumbling. And we can go into the reasons, that's for another discussion, but their world is crumbling. And the smart ones are not all stupid, and the smart ones see it, and they don't know what to do, but their mindset is we have to do something, so they do something dumb. And then they do something dumb, and they say something dumb. Then they start with a drag your kids to a drag queen show, and it's just they're going to implode on themselves. And there's an old Napoleon quote: "Never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake." And I think this is definitely one of those times.
Well, I'm fearful that they are dragging all of us with them. They're making America weaker. They're making more. The fact that America is seen as weak because we have these problems, because we're.
I think that's just going to be temporary, because now that's the price to pay for allowing the progressives to take over all the institutions in this country: Hollywood, mainstream media, universities, now high schools, junior highs, and elementary schools. This is a price we have to pay temporarily for the conservative people that have some authority and institutional power. They just stood by and watched this happen. Now we have to pay the price, and once that price is paid, we'll be fine.
That's an interesting point of view, and I can't say I agree. I want to believe it. I want to say that is what's going to happen. I can't.
Well,
be
you
sure.
and I have fought, but not all conservative people. I mean, we don't have any institutional authority.
Well, that's true. Yes.
And I fought against it, gosh, in the early 2000s when I was a city councilman and a Democrat, mind you. I was the head Democrat. I was the council president.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw this coming. And I'm not the smartest guy in the world. And I fought against it. And it really, really hurt me. And they see guys like me that basically their businesses go under, plaque them after me for my business, and we can go on and on. But they see what happens to people that speak up. But now it's starting to change. But the thing is, though, we let it happen. It's kind of like having a small child that we have no discipline at all. And then we decide it gets to a point where it's doing them a lot more harm than good. Now we're going to have some discipline, and the kid freaks out for a while, and it makes your home life absolutely miserable for 6 months to a year. Well, that's the price you have to pay for doing nothing before. And in the end, it'll balance itself out.
I hope you're right.
That's just my take on it all, just knowing human beings.
No, I understand, and I hope you're right.
Its history has borne me out on this. We've had these ups and downs like this. We've always come back. The United States is the most resilient country that's ever existed in the history of the world.
That is true. That is absolutely true. We've seen that.
And that resilience is what will get us past this, pay the price for our neglect, and then we can move on from there. But there's going to be some pain. The next 3, 4, 5 years is going to be very painful. But 10 years from now, I'm incredibly optimistic.
Well, we will, 10 years from now, that's a long way to go. But let me see what other people have to say.
Yep. So if I'm right, then we have this recorded, and I look like a genius.
I hope so.
And if I'm wrong, I want you to delete this episode.
I don't.
All right, Mike.
Go ahead.
All right, Mike. Well, I got that strike taken off, and I'm creeping up on my channel. So to do a shameless plug, please watch Curtis Goes Corner here on YouTube. I'd appreciate the views. And Mike and I are in sync about 99% of the time, so it's all good. And you just get a different guy is saying some things in the news, and Mike's doing what he's doing, and I'm doing what I'm doing. But at the end, we have the same goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, take care. God bless everybody, and have a good day.
Yes. Thank you, John.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. So, folks, like you can see throughout the show, we always have different people. We're always happy to hear different voices from anywhere in the world, whether it's on the chat or whether it's calling into the program. And all we ask is that you just like, share, and subscribe. Help us get to 1,234 subscribers. That's all we're asking for. We're not like Disney or CNN Plus asking you to pay for stuff. We're just saying, please subscribe. Of course, if you do want to pay, hey, I'm happy to take the money. I need it. And to answer, user's been banned. Yes, that is my puppy. I just had him up on the screen. He's a good boy. But I got to get him outside in a little bit. But besides that, so we've talked about a lot of different things today. And I'm still happy to hear anyone who wants to call in, 607-242-1582. I want to bring this together. So we're talking about protecting ourselves. We're supposed to be protected from inflation. But everything that's being done is creating more inflation. We're supposed to be protected from the people who are going to hurt us. But we're hearing those people's voices more and more. We're supposed to be protected from gun violence, the criminals. But we're attacking lawful owners. We're being ineffective in every aspect, and we have seen this consistently. And we have watched what the result is. Inflation has doubled in a year, more than doubled in a year, to be honest. We've seen, and it's going higher. We've seen that gun violence is the same, but more importantly, every single thing that we have been told that's going to protect us has failed. Because everything we have been told will protect us is the same thing that has already existed. We've been told that if we ask a question, we're criminals for that. And that we have been told that to have one ideology is a good thing, and to have a different ideology, well, that needs to be punished. Is this helping anyone? Is this protecting anyone? Again, I'm happy to hear from Kathy Hochul, from Donna Lepardo, from Kirsten Gillibrand, Chuck Schumer, Kathy Hochul, Antonio Delgado, Josh Riley. I'm just going through a bunch of Democratic candidates. I'm happy to have them all come on. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Please tell me why we shouldn't protect Supreme Court justices. Better question. If we cannot protect a Supreme Court justice, why do I believe AOC, the Democrats, that they're going to try and protect me as a citizen? And if they're not willing to protect us, whether it's because they're defunding the police or they won't send the police out, why can't I protect myself? Like wearing a bulletproof vest, which is now criminal in New York State. Are these crazy questions to ask? And I ask this, and I know this has been very America-centric, but think about it. This is going around the world. This isn't limited just to the United States. Because other countries are seeing this and they are reacting to it. If you happen to be in Southeast Asia, you must be terrified right now. China, seeing a weak America without any kind of plan. America has no plan. And they see, okay, so they're willing to go after Taiwan. In fact, as being reported on June 12th, today, what did they say? They said that if anyone dares to secede Taiwan from China, if you help Taiwan, China will not hesitate to fight. China will fight at all costs, and they will fight to the very end. This is the only choice for China. This comes from the Chinese Minister of National Defense, Wei Fenghe. This is in response to the United States saying, our position, our policy hasn't changed. Our policy about Taiwan isn't any different than it has ever been before, although Joe Biden has said it did change. So the president, Joe Biden, in the White House says it's changed. Our defense secretary, Lloyd Austin, says it hasn't changed. China says, you guys don't know what you're doing. but back off or else. Do the people of China feel any safer? Do they feel like they're being protected by the United States like they have been for decades? Do the people in Japan, in South Korea, our allies in Asia, do they feel like they're safer because America is confused? This isn't just about America. This is affecting countries around the world. And the more that we see this destabilized, the less of a plan that we have, because we're too busy asking our politicians to do something instead of doing an effective thing, doing the right thing. Since we're so busy trying to get them to do anything so that they can get reelected, the rest of the world is taking advantage of that and saying, hey, we can go and do anything. America won't stand up. Hell, they won't even get their people out of Afghanistan a year later. User has been banned mentions Japan is moving away from just having a defense force. They're looking to build an army. Well, can you blame them? It's terrifying, folks. And we're asking questions because you should ask questions of your government. And in America, it is a right, it is absolute that we must ask questions of our government. And instead, our government is saying, be silent, obey. I don't think that's ever been good for anyone. At least that's the way that I see it. Now, I'm always open to hear different voices. I'm always open to hear someone who says, Mike, you just got it wrong. The evidence doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm using left-leaning sources. Almost everything that I present to you is from the left. These are their words. This is them saying it. I don't know. But I think it's important that we continue to ask and we remember to take action. And I want to make sure you understand this is the worst thing you could ever possibly hear.
We only have a few minutes, but we have some breaking news. It appears that Chris Murphy and John Cornyn have come to an agreement on a deal to do something.
Stop right there. When you hear the press, the major news media, NBC, say, do something, and they're not telling you doing the right thing, they're not telling you doing the effective thing, doing the thing that's going to protect you. When they say these things, you should run for the hills, be terrified, and go out and buy a firearm. Because the rules are not the same for them as us. The rules are not the same when you don't approve of the approved message, the propaganda that is being put out there. And I swear to God, this is propaganda coming from Meet the Press. This is a propaganda statement. Do something. And it will not make you safe. It has never made you safe in the past. It will never make you safe in the future. And they know it. And they know it. With that said, folks, I got about 10 minutes. I want to go 10 minutes. So in the next 10 minutes, you tell me, whatever it is, you can call in to 607-242-1582. You can ask on chat, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Tell me, what do you think? What's important to you? Do you feel like you're being protected? That you're safer than you were a year ago? Do you think that they're doing a good job with the economy? You tell me. Because I don't think it is. Not when I can look and I can see this is inflation. It's not left or right. This is the numbers from the government. This is inflation. And we've seen it go from 2.6%, actually lower, to right now 8.6%. And they're telling you, don't worry, it's okay. They're telling you that food shortage that's coming, don't worry, it's okay. I'm telling you something completely different. Since January of 2022, we've been telling you, yeah, you should worry. Go out, buy some food. Buy it today. Buy 10% more. Don't panic. Don't panic buy. Just go out, buy 10% more. You're going to save money. And you'll be able to feed your family. And if I'm wrong, and I hope to God I am wrong, but if I'm wrong, no problem. You'll have extra food. Donate it to the homeless. It's a win-win scenario. You can either have extra food and you can donate it to the homeless, or food will be scarce and it will be expensive and you'll save money. Yes, user makes a good point. Learn how to make jerky. Learn how to preserve foods. This is the time to do it, folks, because the costs aren't going down, they're going up. The policies that we are being told aren't making it better for us. This is coming from the United States government itself. This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The numbers don't lie. They're going higher. And we don't have a plan. Excuse me. You're not getting safer in your homes. They wanted to defund the police. It didn't work. They've already had red flag laws. They don't work. They've already raised the age to be able to own certain types of firearms. Now they want to raise the age for all of them. It doesn't work. They've banned certain types of guns. It doesn't work. There isn't a policy that you can point to right now coming out of the Biden-Harris administration being said by the speaking heads of the Democratic Party. Nothing is helping you. And in fact, they are taking a bow and they're gleeful because they can say that, guess what? You're not safe, and they don't want to make you safe because you don't agree. They're telling you directly. And then they tell me, and they tell this channel, we're the bad guys. Because we notice what they're doing. I don't understand. But folks, as you see, every Sunday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we reach out to hear your voices from around the world about the issues that matter to you. We reach out every Sunday and we spend the time to go through the issues, to show you the evidence, and to ask the questions that no one else in the media will ask. To try and make sense of what's going on so that we can have better lives, so that we actually can be protected, so that we can actually get something done that is effective, efficient. Democrats right now are terrified they're going to lose their power. Guess what? If they did a better job, they wouldn't have to worry about it. There's absolutely no reason why they should be reelected. Besides the fact that they've always been there and they think they're better than you. Because they can't give you a good reason why you should reelect them, except fear. And I don't believe in that. I don't agree with that. That's coercion. But maybe you think I'm wrong. I'm perfectly happy to hear what you have to say. You know, after the show, you see this later, you send it to your friends, they disagree, someone has a question, leave it in the comments. We read all the comments. We're happy to hear your comments, to know what you think. Because that makes America better. And if America is better and stronger, the world is more stable. With that said, I want to thank you for being here, whether you've been here for the whole 3.5 hours or if you've been with us just for 5 minutes. I appreciate the fact that you took time out of your Sunday to be here with us. We hope that you'll come back. We hope that we'll hear from you to call in or to leave a text or a chat with us. And we hope that you'll subscribe, because we really do value you. We appreciate you, whether you agree or disagree. We appreciate each and every one of you. Folks, I want you to be well. I want you to be safe. And I want to see you next week, Sunday, 2:30 p.m. Throughout the week, you can always check out our channel. We do many interviews and shows on many different topics, and I hope that you'll check them out. But until the next time, I want to thank you, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.